And we are live. Fewer tabs, the better. Yes, thank you. Love getting emails saying that I'm live after I've gone live. Gold star email account. Give people a second to join. Cool. Got all the fun tabs open. I've got obviously the section map open that the State High School League just released. Today is Saturday. Say they released it yesterday morning, actually. Yeah, Friday the 4th of April. That was pretty sweet that they actually released everything. And we finally got answers of what classes all the teams fell into, which I'm going to talk about a little bit because that's not clear and cut from how the State High School League normally does it. Like, because obviously 6A is the 32 biggest teams. Below that, you've got 5A, which is supposed to be the next 48 teams in terms of athletic enrollment. And then below that, you have 4A, which is the next 48 teams after that. So 32, 48, 48, 6A, 5A, 4A, respectively. But that's not quite how they did it. And obviously, you are going to get a little bit of moving around. 6A is always going to be 32 teams, even if it's not the 32 biggest. Like, say, Apple Valley doesn't want to play 6A. Or what happened, the State High School League was concerned about them playing 6A. And so they asked someone else to voluntarily move up. And yay, Coon Rapids for moving up. Now we got 32. Oh, so yeah, let's go ahead, open up, and we will share the tab. Yep, that's the good old map. Let's get things rolling over here. So starting off 4A. So this is what the section map looks like around Minnesota. The different colors are the different sections. So let's start with probably the one everyone's going to be looking at. Section 1 down here for 4A. So out there you got Winona, who I don't know if they've been good the last few years, but historically always been a solid program. So that's one of the big ones that we need to talk about. Stewartville, I want to say 2023 cycle, they were classified down to 3A. And then this cycle for the 25 to 27, they're the smallest team in 4A now. I think if I go to my enrollments over here, the enrollment cutoffs, you'll see 464 is the smallest for 4A. And if we go to enrollments by numbers, we go down to 464, you will see, there it is, 464, Stewartville High School. So that's the cutoff right there. Stewartville 4A, Jordan High School 3A. So, you know, poor old Stewartville. But, I mean, this section's just loaded, and this is what I don't get when they said they wanted to make more parity. Like, you've got, I don't know if Faribault's any good. Austin I'm not too familiar with, but just in this area right here, in the same section, you've got Winona, who, like I said, not down in the last few years, but still a great program. You've got Stewartville, you've got Byron, so you have the 3A winner from last year. You have a team that made it to state, and I think they made it all the way to US Bank Stadium, right? I want to say they lost to Rocori in 2023. I don't know how far they went last year. And then you have Cass and Manorville. So think about that. Only one of those 4 teams is going to get to move up into the state tournament for 4A, which is wild. And then here's another one. We'll go over to section 2 next. I want to say that's Marshall all the way out there. So you got your Marshall, whatever New Ulm is, St. Peter, your usual suspects. I want to say that's Wilmer. Yep. This is where it gets interesting, though. So, if you remember, the 2023 4A state title game was between Hutchinson and now, back in their section, Rocori. So that's going to be an absolute battle. And again, it kind of stinks because you're never going to get a state rematch. Only one of those 2 teams can make it into state. If I haven't said already, so the way the state tournament works, at least for classes below 6A, is that all of these sections here only get 1 team to come out of it, and those 8 teams are the state tournament. So, for example, all these teams I was talking about earlier in Section 1, They would all have like a little playoff bracket that's called their sections, and then the winner comes out of that, and the winner goes to state, which is why you can't have Byron and Casson Manorville and Stewartville all go to state. Which, like I said, total bummer, because I guarantee I'd much rather have a lot of those teams than, like, look at the section up here for Section 7. Grand Rapids, Grand Rapids, Rock Ridge, North Branch, and then I want to say that's Cloquet, Hermantown, and Duluth-Denfeld. Like, you really going to tell me all 6 of those teams are better than Byron, Stewartville, and Casson Manorville? So a little bit interesting there, but, you know, I guess we'll see what happens come around state time. Maybe Grand Rapids will win the whole thing, and I'll have to eat my words. Fergus Falls, Detroit Lakes, Little Falls. This is kind of stinky for their section because they're so far out there. Like, Detroit Lakes, if they're forced to play 4A, I mean, Fergus Falls is your closest opponent. That's got to be, like, what, an 2-hour haul between Little Falls and Detroit Lakes? Tech got dropped down to 4A. They were 5A. I mean, okay, well. When you have Becker in that section, that's kind of a loaded section too. Detroit Lakes has been pretty solid the last few years. Princeton's been really good the last 2 years, and then Becker doesn't need any introduction. We already know how good Becker is. We talked about that section. I guess should talk about what the numbers of the section mean. So the 1, 2, 7, and 8, those sections are like diagonally out from the Twin Cities, and they're just way far out there. So as you see, far out, far out, far out, and far out. Whereas sections 3, 4, 5, and 6 are generally inside the Twin Cities, and those are more north, south, east, west, as you kind of see here. To an extent, yeah. West, east, and then south, north. Zimmerman, that Big Lake. I've never even heard of Big Lake. Delano, Mound West Tonka, although I heard they're changing their name to just West Tonka. Ooh, Orono, Providence Academy. I could see Orono coming out of that section, but you know, Zimmerman I think made a run 2 years ago in 2022. Chisago Lakes, they're up there, and then these are all the St. Paul schools down here. Yeah, Johnson, all them. Hill Murray's not. So I want to say that's South St. Paul. Then I think Simley is down here. Yeah, so I mean, you got some good sections. I want to say Fridley and Totino Grace are up there. Columbia Heights, St. Anthony. You think it's funny that there's like all these 4A schools here, and then right over here, yeah, right there, I want to say is Mounds View. So, you know, go figure. You just have a 6A school in the middle of all that. Twin Cities Charter. We'll see if they get anything going. Como Park. De La Salle, and then you got a bunch of the SMB Wolfpack. So there you go. This is another reason why it's more difficult to predict like what teams fall into what sections, because you have co-ops, which I should talk about with Twin Cities Charter. So a co-op is when you have multiple schools that come together to form one team. Like in football, you have the SMB Wolfpack, which St. Paul Academy, Minnehaha Academy, Hope Academy, and the Blake School. All those teams come together and they form SMB for football. Whereas for other sports, they may not play together. Like, obviously, Minnehaha Academy does their own thing for basketball. And then what's down here? Holy Angels, well, then that's got to be Richfield, right? Yeah, so, I mean, Benilde, same. So this isn't exactly the strongest section. I know SMB's been down for a little bit. I don't think any teams in that section had a winning record last year, did they? Let's go over to Minnesota scores and see how it stood. Right, Totino Grace won theirs. I mean, that was pretty obvious. Holy Angels. Okay, Holy Angels had a winning record, so they did solid. But, yeah, rest of the teams in the section, not so much. Orono, Providence, that was a pretty good section. North Branch. So, yeah, these teams still all do pretty good in that north section. Obviously, Princeton and Becker battling it out. Poor Ricori was in there. So, Ricori moves out, and they're up with, who did I say? They're over here in section 2 with, like, Hutch, St. Peter. Which will be nice, because, I mean, it feels like other than Hutch being down last year, they almost always get a free ride into the state tournament, so, it'll be nice, a little more competition there. And yeah, that's pretty much all of 4A. The only, like I said, the only big thing that there really is to look at would be down there in Section 1, kind of what we have our eyes on. So, and another thing we're going to talk about before we go up to 5A, when you look at the total number of teams up there, 49. Now, if you go to, here it is, how they're supposed to be, 6A is the biggest 32 schools in Minnesota, 5A is the next 48, and then 4A is the next 48 after that. So obviously that didn't happen if you have 48 teams. Now, the teams are able to move up as many classes as they want, and they normally can only opt down one class. And I believe that the State High School League manipulated the cutoffs. So if you look at the cutoffs here and then compare them to the enrollment cutoffs that they listed, so here's 6A. We'll do 6A as an example because that's the top 32 teams. So if you go to the alphabetic enrollment of the top teams, not alphabetic, this is by enrollment. So you go to top 32. Number 32 right down here would be Apple Valley at 1636. But if you look at the classification, says 1642. So what happened? Well, that's because the State High School League was worried about Apple Valley having to play 6A, so they got bumped down, and then Coon Rapids volunteered to come up. So that stayed the way it is. But 5A, if we switch over from 4A to 5A here, only 43 teams. So how can it be the next 48 teams after 6A? And it should still be like a nice solid 48, because if you figure, okay, you lose Apple Valley plus Coon Rapids, that's -1 plus 1 balances out to 0, so you still have 32 in 6A. So where are all these missing teams in 5A? I guess we're about to go through that. We'll just update the currently watching at the bottom because we are leveling up to 5A. Oh, and this is cool for me. So I used to coach at Bloomington Jefferson before I moved over to Lakeville South. So obviously very in tune with 5A, know a lot of the coaches there. And we'll see how things play out. Got to zoom out a little bit because, our buddies up there in Bemidji, Brainerd, they're all 5A. And you see kind of the same pattern we saw with 4A, how sections 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all clustered really tight in the Twin Cities. And then sections 1, 2, 7, and 8 are all kind of the outskirts of the state, really far out there. You still get some of them that are like in the Twin Cities technically. I don't know. Does Elk River consider themselves Twin Cities? Does Monticello? Probably not Monticello. Maybe Elk River. But they're like on the border out there. St. Francis probably doesn't, and Cambridge Isanti shouldn't. And then that's Duluth up there. So we'll just go through the sections one by one, because there were some shakeups here. So obviously one of the big things is, we'll go to this bottom one down here, Rochester Mayo, no longer in 6A. I called this back in October. You could kind of tell, not as much that they're getting smaller, but Rogers, Andover, and Moorhead are all just growing so fast that it was pretty obvious those three teams, and they were on the cusp in the last cycle. Going back to our enrollments over there, you can see they're actually, Andover's going up. They're finally 6A. They're just behind Lakeville South. Rogers is up here. Where's Moorhead? Moorhead's up here. Moorhead's bigger than Park, Lakeville North, Mounds View. So, yeah, those schools have been growing, and I think they're going to stick around in 6A for a while. Definitely. But going back to 5A, so like we said, there's only 43 teams, but Rochester Mayo's down there. And it'll be nice they finally get to play Century and John Marshall again. Think about it. For 6A, when Mayo was in 6A, all the other teams were all right here. And the furthest out was STMA. I think right there is St. Michael Albertville. They had to go all the way up here just to play any game. And any of these teams that had a road game at Mayo, like the Lakeville South Cougars, had to drive all the way down 52. It's a good excuse to go to Flapdoodles while you're down there, but yeah, it's not exactly fun for those kids, not exactly fun for everybody else. But hey, I gotta give Mayo a lot of props. They did a fantastic job holding their own in 6A. They did not appeal for the Maroon schedule or any relief. They had to play Lakeville North, Lakeville South. They played Egan. They played Rosemount. They had a tough schedule. And then if you look at their non-section games, like, sure, you had Burnsville, which Maroon game makes sense. But then their last two games of the season were Eastridge, who always was solid. First year they had, what's his name? They were amazing. And then the second year, who did they play? Oh, Eden Prairie. Yeah. And then Eastridge had a really good season last year, even without Tanner Zelonsky. That's his name. Great quarterback. I want to say he's at Eastern Illinois now. But yeah, so that'll be a competitive section because you have Rochester Mayo, who's still very well coached. I don't know if you've ever watched Coach Holcomb's podcast on his YouTube channel. Highly recommend it. You can just tell the man is very smart, really picks things apart, studies film, knows the game well, great offensive mind. And, that's kind of reflected in Mayo's QRF because they scored a lot of points on offense, but they also gave up a lot of points on defense. And then Owatonna. they're coming off a state semifinal appearance in 5A. They used to just kind of roll over the section. John Marshall was good last year, but I mean, Owatonna was just built different. But this should add some nice little competition there. So we're about to get into one of the problems I have with 5A though. So you see, you have 3 teams that all could potentially go to state, and then we go up here to Section 3, where you have Hastings, Apple Valley, Burnsville, and I want to say this is 2 Rivers. Yeah, all of those. And then who's the one other team in their section? St. Thomas Academy. It's like, I wonder who's going to win that section and go to state. So, and that's always kind of been the gripe that some of the 5A coaches have had with their playoff sections, is that some teams just get a free ride into the state tournament, like St. Thomas, for example. Meanwhile, you look at Section 1 down here, you could have Owatonna, John Marshall, or Mayo, who are all good teams and could be considered state-worthy. Heads up, it still says loading on the screen. Does it really? It's not showing the tab? Does it show the picture now? And I can delete the... Oh, you know why? I'm an idiot. Because loading is all the way at the top. Loading should be down below the capture. There we go. Thank you. That was definitely pants on head moment. Working out the kinks. No, I don't think Yemen plays Minnesota high school football. I wonder if they even play football in Yemen. If not, look into it. Well, soccer, as we call it over here. But yeah, I'm sure they're big on that. We talked about Section 3, how St. Thomas gets kind of that free ride in the state tournament every year. So if we come over here to Section 2, it kind of echoes what I was talking about with Section 1, how you've got Mayo, John Marshall, and Owatonna, who all could compete for state. Well, we think back to the 2023 playoffs, you've got Chanhassen right there and Mankato West right there. Every single year, only one of those 2 can make it into state. And, you know, you think back to last year, Mankato East had a great season. I think they were, like 6-2? Pull up 5A right here on Minnesota scores, just because I'm not as familiar with how everybody did last year. But, yeah, you see right there, Owatonna and John Marshall both did good. Mankato West was good. Mankato East had a great season, and Chan. So, like I said, only one of those 3 teams gets to make it into state. Even though you could argue all 3 of them might be good enough to make state. Meanwhile, St. Thomas doesn't have to play anybody to get into the state tournament. And then, speaking of sections that may not have to play a lot, let's go back and we'll talk about Bloomington Jefferson next. So where I used to coach, down here, good old Jefferson Jaguars. Fantastic. They only have 5 teams in Section 5 right here, which, when I saw this map yesterday, because I'm like, I wonder how Jefferson's going to do, texted all my old buddies at Jefferson, like, hey, you should make the state tournament this year. There is no reason not to, and this is why. So the other teams they play, Bloomington Kennedy, who they haven't played in the regular season or at all since, I want to say, my first year coaching at Jefferson, which was 2018. So, you know, going on 8 years now that they have not played each other. Washburn, who's this over here? Minneapolis Southwest, and St. Louis Park. Okay. Objectively speaking, Jefferson should have I'm not too familiar with Washburn, but I've played against all the others, and Jefferson should make the state tournament. I don't see any reason why they would not be able to just roll through their section. I guess it all kind of depends, and it also depends on who they play in the regular season. So if I haven't specified already, this is not regular season. This is only postseason sections, and that's also not like the division or / conference that you'll play, or district, I think is the word we use. So these are not districts and conferences. These are only playoff sections. So I'm assuming that they're going to have some of these teams cross over. And, you know, I should reach out to the guys at Jefferson, because if they're playing in a section like this, it makes me wonder if they asked for schedule relief and they want to play like the Twin Cities Interleague, because I know Bloomington Kennedy did that in the 2019 season. And, I mean, Kennedy's had really good records since then, but then come playoff time, when they used to play in this section with, get Burnsville out of there, but they used to play with those 6, St. Thomas and all them, Kennedy would get killed. They'd get smoked by 2 Rivers, they'd get smoked by Hastings, Apple Valley would even take it to them. So yeah, it's just always so hard to tell. And I think Future Just West Tonka, would do the same thing. They would play all these 5A and 4A teams in the Inter-City League, and then as we saw on that 4A map, then you'd have to go play Orono in the playoffs. And, well, I wonder how that's gonna end. Yeah, Orono took it to him. So yeah, like I said, Jefferson should easily be able to win that section. When you only have 4 other teams, and it's Kennedy, Washburn, Minneapolis Southwest, and St. Louis Park, Jefferson should make the state tournament. But again, one of those 5 teams is going to make the state tournament in 5A. Meanwhile, like I said, Chan, Chaska, Mankato East, Mankato West, Waconia, only one of those 5 can get in. So I don't know that I'd say any of those 5 teams are better than any of those 5 teams out there in Section 2, but that's just kind of the reality of section playoffs. So, gotta win your section, gotta make the state tournament. Who's up here? I'm gonna say Cretin-Durham Hall is one of these. St. Paul Central, CDH. So this is another section that some people have argued is kind of weak. So you have Harding, Humboldt, and a lot of the St. Paul schools. Tartan, who isn't the best. Matamidi used to be really good, but then that used to be the issue. Matamidi used to just cruise to the state title game, similar to St. Thomas, because they played all the inner-city St. Paul schools in their section. Meanwhile, they're a nice suburb out there, and they would just always win. Cretin-Durham Hall and Tartan have kind of offered them a little bit of challenge, but, let's go back over to the sections here, and you'll see all of these records right here. If you look at the overalls in this column, 6-5, 5-6, 5-5, 3-7, 3-6. And then you compare that to like sections 1 or 2, 11-1, 7-3, 8-4, 5-4, 7-3. Even section 3 for that matter. Two Rivers, who also plays an inner-city schedule, so that's not the most accurate, but 7-4 there. Yeah, and you just see there's not... Oh, yeah, here's a great with Section 8 with all those teams. We'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, so that one was just never really that fair or balanced of a section, so it kind of surprises me that they left that the same. I really thought there was going to be more parity in 5A, and they were going to mix up the sections a little bit, that you didn't have, like, St. Thomas waltzing into the state tournament having played nobody, or Matamidi or Cretin-Durham Hall doing the same thing. But even then, remember, we're still dealing with high schoolers. Any team could essentially beat anyone any night. Like, I think I actually went to, what was it, Owatonna, who, you saw 11-1. They didn't lose until, the state semifinal versus Alexandria at US Bank Stadium. They barely beat Cretin-Durham Hall in overtime, who was 6-4 up to that point. So, you never really know. And you can sort of tell with their QRF, it's only an 88. Meanwhile, QRF here was 138. So it's like, whoa, it was really that close of a game. Yeah, even the second place team of QRF in 5A can get rocked a little bit. I think that's funny that Armstrong had the top QRF. QRF really isn't the best measurement. That's just like a measure of how difficult your opponents are, how many points you've scored, and how many points you give up throughout the whole season. So it's not always the most accurate. We'll do Section 7 next. So speaking on the whole pattern of teams that kind of get to waltz into the state title and other sections had absolute, like, battles they had to go through, Section 7 up here used to have the exact same thing, because Elk River used to have their buddies Andover up here. But no more Andover. They're up to 5A now. So if you look, you got Monticello, who's been pretty solid. Cambridge to Santee, I think, is down a little bit. And then way out there is Duluth East. Don't want to forget St. Francis as well. But, I mean, Elk River's got to be celebrating. Coach Hamilton's probably hyped. I mean, are any of those teams going to beat Elk River in the section tournament? No. I think Elk River is getting right into the state final. Or not state final. Into the state bracket, the final 8 teams. So, yeah, like, see, I don't know who's going to come out of that. I don't know who's going to come out of that. But you can say, okay, St. Thomas, you can pencil in there. Elk River, you can pencil in there. Section 8 is always a weird one because it's so far out there. Bemidji's always been solid. Alexandria, state runner-up last year, they've been good, but they're celebrating because their arch rival up there, the Potatoes of Moorhead, no longer in 5A. They got bumped up to 6A. So who's going to compete with them? Sartell, Sauk Rapids Rice. I think Sauk Rapids Rice used to play in this section. So that's the other thing with Elk River. You lose Sauk Rapids Rice, who's been good the last few years. You lost Andover, like, they just have no competition in their section now. Bemidji, we'll see what they do. Brainerd's been good in the regular season, doesn't quite translate to postseason. Sartell's rebuilding, they just switched their offense. They're actually going to a flexbone offense. We'll see that in a little bit when we go over Shakopee versus Hopkins. And Sauk Rapids Rice has also been really solid. So, I mean, there's still some competition up here, but Alexandria's still happy that them Spuds are gone. Then we'll go back in because I don't think I talked about Section 6 here. First of all, Buffalo, welcome back to 5A. I'm sure they're happy to be out of 6A. Sure, they won 10 games, but it was all against Maroon teams, and they had to play those West teams from the Metro in 6A. So your Eden Prairies, your Edinas, Wayzata, no, they didn't play Wayzata. They played EP, Minnetonka, and Prior Lake were their 3 non-Maroon games, and oof, I mean, that's rough physical football right there. Poor Buffalo. But who else do we have? I'm assuming that's Brooklyn Center, Park Center. You have the 2 Robbinsdale schools, Armstrong and Cooper, who that usually comes down to Irondale, and then Spring Lake Park. Spring Lake Park's kind of been down recently, and I think that's more so just because if you look, the area around there is all developed. I know there were some rumors that Spring Lake Park might have moved up to 6A in this past cycle, but you just look around the area, like Fridley, Blaine, like all this is all developed. They're just completely landlocked here. There's nowhere to grow out that way. And plus, once you get past up here, then you're getting into the Anoka Hennepin schools. You got Blaine, Coon Rapids is over here, Andover's up there, Anoka's down there, Champlin's over here. And if you go the other direction, well, there's Mounds View over there. So Centennial Cougars right there in Circle Pines. In fact, if you zoom in, boom, there it is right there. But yeah, and so this is kind of the same section. If Cooper offers some kind of competition, it might get interesting. Otherwise, it feels like Armstrong might just get another free ride in the state tournament. And, you know, I mean, that's kind of half the teams you can pencil in right there. Elk River, Robbinsdale Armstrong, St. Thomas Academy, and most likely Bloomington Jefferson out of that section. So that's 4 out of the 8 teams before the season's even started that don't really have a lot of competition in their section. We'll see if they're able to execute and get after it. Obviously, anything can happen in the regular season, but yeah, I definitely get like the frustration of like a Mankato West and a Chanhassen that they both arguably could be competing for the state title in the final game, but only one of them makes the state tournament. Meanwhile, St. Thomas, not that St. Thomas is bad. I mean, St. Thomas is one of the most well-coached, well-disciplined, and they're amazing talent in all of 5A. But, you know, like I said, a little bit more competition to get into the state tournament, and plus it would prepare them better. I know they've been doing a lot better with the regular season schedules in 5A, which the last cycle was fantastic. Like, week 1, you get Chanhassen versus Elk River. Amazing. I think we all love that. Okay, so now it's time to go play with the big boys. So, instead of 5A sections, we're going to talk about the one we're all here to see. 6A. So we're going to update that. Get on over here and update our map. So, 32 teams in 6A. They're the top 32 teams in Minnesota, minus our buddies in Apple Valley. So it only goes to Forest Lake, no Apple Valley. And then Coon Rapids volunteered to come back up. I don't know if the State High School League contacted any of these other schools that are on the fringe to come up to 6A. The only one I know they did contact for sure was Coon Rapids, and Coon Rapids volunteered, which really surprises me. Coon Rapids did not win a single game last year. They were 0-9, 0-8 in the regular season, then they lost in the first round of the playoffs. We'll scroll on section 5. There they are, 0-9. They averaged less than a touchdown a game, gave up over 6 touchdowns a game. Only had a QRF of 35, which was not the lowest in 6A. Who was the lowest? Oh, Burnsville, who also went 0-9, which is weird because they scored a little bit more points and gave up less. Huh. Yeah, I don't know why that QRF. I feel maybe Burnsville, that's because Burnsville played a Maroon schedule, whereas Coon Rapids did not. That's probably why. So I guess that makes sense. Plus, yeah, that's not as good of competition. Well, no, that should lower the QRF because that's not as good of competition, whereas Burnsville had to play, what did they play? Lakeville North. They played Farmington, and they played Mayo. So, yeah, okay, I can sort of see that. Going over to our sections, though, you'll see we've got our fantastic 32 teams. We've got 31 focused on the Metro right there, and then just way out in the distance is Moorhead High School. Absolutely wild. So we're going to go over this. This is pretty much, and this will be kind of brief. This is what I had touched on. I think I posted on my main Instagram account on Wednesday. And we kind of found out about this last week. This is what Coach Benton from Shakopee said the sections were going to be, and he was spot on. So first, like I said, there's only 4 sections of 8 teams in 6A. So you'll notice 1, 2, 7, and 8, kind of those way out there sections. do not exist in 6A. There's only 32 teams, and we have 4 sections, each with 8 teams. 4 times 8, 32. Look at that. We can still do math. Fantastic. So we'll just go through the sections kind of one by one, because some things did change. We'll go over section 4 first. That is the east section over here. And so if you look at them, obviously you've got Forest Lake, White Bear Lake, Mounds View, Stillwater, and then Woodbury Eastridge. And then the 2 maroon teams that requested schedule relief that are still in the section. You've got your Roseville and Park Cottage Grove. So I don't know how much is going to change with their schedules. I'll go over that once we're kind of done looking at sections. But basically, because these 2 requested schedule relief, they're going to be the 7th and 8th seed. Whichever one has the better record will be the 7th seed in that section. Whoever has the worst record will be the 8th seed. Generally speaking, coaches still have to vote on it. But, you know, generally they stick with that rule. The only time you'll see something change like that, if a team with a worse record gets the 1 seed, was like last year with Section 6, the West, when Shakopee was still over there. Even though Shako was 7-1, a 6-2 Minnetonka got the 1 seed, because when you're comparing 2 teams that are very close, did they play head-to-head in that season? Yes, they did. Who won the Shakopee-Minnetonka game? Tonka did. Tonka gets the 1 seed, even though Shako had the better record. We'll look at Section 3 next. So this is where we are. Obviously, is the furthest south team in 6A. Lakeville South right there. You got the Panthers up there up north. Lakeville East High School, or Farmington High School out there. The Tigers. Egan's still up there. Obviously, you got Rosemount. This is where it gets interesting. So we lost Burnsville, who's up there. And obviously, we lost Rochester Mayo, which thankfully you don't have to go all the way down there. But you have to have 8 teams in a section. So we lost 2. 2 have to come in. And the only 2 that, if you look, Minnesota River runs right through here and goes around Shakopee along 169 there. All these 8 teams are all south of the Minnesota River, which is why they were all placed in the South Section 3. So there you got Shakopee, you got your Prior Lake, and they're the newcomers. This is where scheduling is going to get weird, and we'll talk about this after I go over the other 2 sections. And Section 6 is in the same boat. We only have 1 team that has requested schedule relief in our section thus far, which is Eastview. I highly doubt Farmington's going to. I know they're redoing their offense. One of their co-head coaches left. I think he's at Forest Lake now, Coach Sutton. But how is that going to play out? That means that we're going to play 6 games against the other 6, but then who gets to play Eastview? And that's kind of where it gets unfair. Suppose Lakeville South, for our 6 section games, gets Shako, Prior Lake, North, Farmington, Rosemount, Egan. Well, then we don't get to play an easy game against Eastview. So how do you decide who gets that? And I'm sure the State High School League's thought of that. Supposedly they have schedules ready, and they're going to release them on April 14th, which is a Monday, about 9 days away. See if I can't get some coverage on those when those come out. But yeah, so, and the same thing as Section 4. Those teams are all going to be seeded 1 through 8 for the state tournament. Let's go over to Section 5 next, the North. So, you know, I'll bring in Section 6 as well. It's kind of hard not to talk about these 2 teams together. So, the big change from not 5A to 6A, from the last cycle to this cycle, 6A is the 32 biggest teams. You have 3 teams that came in this year. You got Rogers, Moorhead, and Andover, I believe, is up there. Yep. So those 3 teams came up. Rogers, Andover, Moorhead. Rochester, Mayo, Buffalo, and Burnsville went down. Now, geographically speaking, that's where it gets confusing. Moorhead, Andover, and Rogers are all up this way, up north of the cities, whereas Buffalo was way out here, which is a little bit north. They got put in the west section, but Burnsville is here in the south, and obviously Rochester, Mayo is all the way down there. So you lose 2 teams out of the south, and you gain 3 teams in the north. So that's what we were all wondering with sections. Teams are going to have to get moved around, because you can't just have 11 teams in the north and then only 6 and 7. That doesn't work with the state tournament bracket, at least not for 6A. It's got to be 4 sections of 8 teams specifically. So we'll get sections 3 and 4 out of there. And so when I was talking with Bob Madison at the clinic a few weeks ago, the MFCA clinic, he was talking, he wouldn't give information away because they hadn't fully released everything yet. But he did give clues. Gave some clues. He's like, you know, Coach Lance was telling me that it's tough when you have teams like Moorhead, Maple Grove, or St. Michael Albertville that happen to have borders and school boundaries on both sides of I-94. Meanwhile, a team like an Osseo or an Andover or even Rogers, the vast majority of their borders, if not all their borders, are north of I-94. And that's when things clicked in my head. All right, I get what you're laying down. So that kind of just separated a lot of those teams. And I know Coach Sproul at Maple Grove is really happy about this. Maple Grove used to be in the north section. So did St. Michael Albertville. But like I said, somebody had to leave Section 5. You can't have 11 teams in Section 5. Andover, Rogers, and Moorhead are all coming in on the northwest side of the Twin Cities, which is where Section 5 is. Somebody was going to have to go in order for us to keep using the state tournament. And it just so happened that Maple Grove wanted to go west anyway while these 3 teams are coming in. Works out perfectly. So Maple Grove gets sent to the west. STMA, which is kind of wild that STMA is in the west. Like I said, the State High School League's explanation is because they're on both sides of I-94, and the school itself is actually just south of I-94. And I think that's the same thing with Moorhead. If we go all the way up here, well, no, they're north of I-94, but as you see, it runs right through the town of Moorhead. All of that is the school. So that's still just wild that... And I kind of figured that Moorhead and STMA would have to be in the same section. STMA is the closest opponent that Moorhead will play. I've heard rumors that Moorhead might play a 5A schedule, but I don't know why they'd want to do that. Because one, that means they'd have to request schedule relief. And if they did request schedule relief, that's number 2, then they would be locked in as a 7 or 8 seed in their section. Because the other team that requested schedule relief in Section 6 is Hopkins, right there. And if Moorhead wants to compete for a state title, they're a 7th seed. That means they got to play a 2 seed in the first round at the 2 seed. And I just don't see that happening. I don't know why they'd want to limit themselves like that. So, I mean, it's definitely going to stink. They're guaranteed to probably play St. Michael because they're in their section. But, yeah, it's going to be a long haul for Moorhead coming down. And then, obviously, anyone that's got to go up there. Remember, so we're Midwest. We measure distance in terms of hours. 2 hours and 57 minutes from Moorhead High School down to St. Michael Albertville. So that's essentially 3 hours right there between the two. Then you figure from St. Michael down to, like, we'll say Lakeville down here, Lakeville South, because we played at STMA. That is another hour drive. So you're talking about, like, Lakeville South versus Moorhead would be a 4-hour round, or not round trip, 4 hours one way for either team. Which would be wild, but hey, that's how we do it in 6A, so yay. And then we'll go over the rest of Section 6. Obviously, you have Edina, you got EP, Minnetonka, Wayzata, they all stayed. STMA and Maple Grove, talked about it. It's because they're on both sides of I-94 that they're coming into the west section. Maple Grove lucked out, as we discussed. And that, I mean, that's a absolutely stacked section. You've got the 2 teams that played in the state title game last year, Maple Grove and Minnetonka. Eden Prairie's Eden Prairie, we know how good they are. Edina still has Mason West. They were the state runner-up 2 years ago in 2023. Only lost on a 2-point conversion that was literally half a yard short, if not like a foot. Wayzata, I mean, they're always solid. You can never say Wayzata's a bad team. They just play in a difficult section. So yeah, that section's going to be absolute battles, but it's going to be a lot of fun games, a lot of good stuff to watch. Now let's talk about the north section, Section 5. So, as I mentioned, we'll start with Centennial over here. So, state winners in 2023. They beat Lakeville South in the state semifinal. We did not prepare as well for an option team as we should have, and we didn't really understand how flexbone teams worked or what their plays were. I got a better understanding of that now, so maybe we'll see them again, but Centennial is absolutely loving life right now. You no longer have to play a defensive-heavy STMA team that's way out there. You just lost Maple Grove, your biggest competition, and you get 2 5A teams coming into your section, Rogers and Andover. So, I mean, Centennial's just got to be losing their mind right now, happy, because do you really think that Osseo or Coon Rapids, or maybe, Anoka and Blaine will give them some trouble, but I don't see, maybe Champlin could do something. Where's Champlin? Right there. But I mean, if you compare that to like Section 3 or Section 6, this one's just not as strong, and Centennial's probably happy, because I mean, they had a lot of young players in their team last year. I want to say it was a lot more sophomores and juniors, just because they lost so many kids from that state title team. It was a very senior heavy team in 2023, so last year was kind of a rebuild year. I've been watching their Instagram stuff from Coach Diggins Jr. I assume he's the one that runs that. They're doing a good job. They get after it in the weight room. I think they had a quarterback. He's a sophomore this year. He was benching like 325. I mean, as a quarterback, that's pretty awesome. So give the kid all the props in the world. But yeah, I definitely expect Centennial to be better next year. Anoka, obviously Lakeville South, we lost to Anoka in the state. That wasn't even state. We didn't make state. That was a section final, second round of the playoffs. But they lost a lot of talents. I want to say Zach Welch is gone. Peyton Podani graduated. Zach Welch graduated. Some of the receivers, I think, graduated. I don't know how many linemen they have left or on the defensive side of the ball. I want to say that one inside linebacker they had is graduating as well. So definitely going to be a reload year for Anoka. I mean, you lose your 3-year starter quarterback to graduation. Things are going to change. And then the two outliers are Rogers and Andover. So if we go back to 5A sections really fast from last year, Andover, we'll go to Andover first because they're section 7. They always have battles with Elk River. Everyone knows they score a ton of points, give up some on defense, and it's just always a battle between those two. Always have good records, always battling for section 7. I don't know how Andover will stack up in 6A, and I think they're going to go a lot similar to Rochester Mayo. Rochester Mayo being, all right, we have a comment. How does Mike McCarthy have a head coaching job and this guy doesn't? Hey, I'm not head coaching material just yet. I got the self-awareness to realize that I'm just a nerd that loves this stuff, right? I'm not ready to be a head coach, but you best believe when the time comes, we'll bring some sauce. We'll let them know. But until then, you just got to keep learning and just do whatever you can, man. If you want to get into coaching, I always recommend it. The only way to really experience stuff is to do just that. Experience it and keep getting after it. So yeah, Elk River, Andover. I mean, it's hard to say how Andover will respond. If you've ever seen an Elk River versus Andover game, like, they always combine for almost 100 points. Like, if we go to last year, Andover at Elk River, 47-31. When they played again, 59-28. Like, they're just always outscoring each other. You want to go back the year before that? Because I think Andover made state this year. And Elk River was down a little bit. 63-56. 65-32. Like, it's absolutely wild. So yeah, I don't know. I think Andover is going to be very similar to how Rochester Mayo was these last 2 years of the cycle. Mayo had great offense. Donnie Holcomb, offensive-minded coach. Their offense was fantastic. They struggled a little bit on defense because they're not used to that 6A physicality. When you go from playing spread offenses like John Marshall, and I don't think Century's a spread, but Owatonna does a lot more spread stuff now. When you go from those to Lakeville North, the Power I team, Lakeville South, Power T, Rosemount, a lot of option, Egan, Flexbone, triple option, run heavy team. They maybe pass once or twice a game. I mean, that's just a huge culture shock. And you also have to keep in mind, a lot of 5A teams, they don't have the same numbers as 6A, like in terms of number of kids you can choose from. So they have a lot of kids that play both ways, especially the linemen. And when you have kids playing both ways, especially in an up-tempo offense, they're going to get tired, and you play right into the hands of those teams that are more physical. Rosemount has like 2,300 kids in their school. They don't care if you run your fast offense against them. They can chew up time of possession. They can go and punch you in the mouth, and their defense will always be fresh because it's not the same kids that play offense. Whereas I want to say Andover, that's not the same case. I don't know how many kids they would play both ways. But yeah, if you look up the amount of points they give up in 5A, it's actually not too shabby. Other than like Armstrong and Elk River, they kind of struggle with that physicality. But against spread offenses or, St. Thomas, that's pretty good to hold them just to 21. So, I mean, they definitely do have some defense there. But, how that translates to 6A. The only thing I think they have going for them compared to what Mayo did when they came up is that, like I said, Mayo had to play all those tough run-heavy teams. If you go back and you look at Andover's section, you have Centennial that's very physical and run-heavy, and then you got Champlain Park. But otherwise, Osceo's gone to like 11 personnel, more of a spread. You can never underestimate Blaine. They'll get after it, and they'll be physical. Very good offensive team, but they're not the most physical. Anoka's more pass-happy spread. Coon Rapids, we'll see what they do with their new head coach, but I assume because he was an Andover grad, going to be another pass-happy spread offense. Rogers likes to run the ball, but there's still a spread. They do it a lot out of 11 personnel. So they're just not going to see all those run-heavy teams like you see in the South or the West. You're only going to see one, Centennial. So I think Andover will be just fine. Rogers, I do not know what to make of Rogers. I know that talking with their coach, when they were trying to figure out if they were going to get placed in the North section or in the West section out here, if they got in the North, they were going to play a regular schedule. If they got put in the West over here with like your Wyzetta, Tonka, EP, Edinas, they were going to ask to have schedule relief, kind of like Hopkins does, and play a Maroon schedule. And that's another thing that I haven't talked about with this North section. As far as I know, none of these teams in this section have requested schedule relief, and we'll talk about that in a minute when we go over schedule predictions. But yeah, even Coon Rapids, who didn't win a game last year, Osseo. I've had rumors that Osseo is getting a new head coach this year. I haven't heard anything about that. I don't know if Coach Stockhouse is still there or not. I haven't heard anything about him leaving. I haven't seen anything on their Instagram. You hear rumors here and there, so who knows for sure. But now let's talk about 6A schedule predictions. Now that we have an idea of sections, we can't exactly know everyone's schedule, but we can get a pretty good idea of most of the teams in 6A. We'll go ahead, we'll change it currently watching. Currently watching 6A schedule predictions. Now, we'll go over to my wonderful spreadsheet. So this is how the divisions currently stand. The sections I just talked about are all up here. The numbers loosely represent the side of the Twin Cities they're on. So section 3 is the South, 4 is the East, 5 is the North, and 6 is the West. And as you saw, sections have been released on that other screen. What's right there is what's here. I just labeled them all in alphabetical order. But if we come over here and we look at divisions, and instead of divisions, I'm actually going to change that. We're going to call that districts / if I could spell, districts / conferences. So, district / conference are the teams you play in the regular season. Those are different from playoff sections. I think I mentioned that when I was talking about 4A and 5A. Which is why, like, if you look at the chart here, so we'll go back and we'll look at football, go to our standings in the sections, and we'll go to 6A. You'll see that there's only 4 sections of 8 teams, right? That's what they use for the state playoffs. But suppose I want to go and I want to look at conference standings instead for 6A. It's going to make me pick, dude, just let me pick all of 6A. That's wild. All right, we'll do the Metro South. If you look at the Metro South, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 teams are missing. That's because if you go to Metro Maroon, these are all the teams that requested schedule relief. So even though their district / conference is different for the regular season because they requested schedule relief, they still get lumped into their playoff sections. So like I said, Roseville and Park Cottage Grove probably are not going to be in a conference / district with all these other teams out east. They'll be in the Maroon, but they're still in the playoff section with those teams and will be part of Section 4 for the playoffs. And this is where things currently stand, and this is why it's hard for me to kind of predict what schedules are going to be for 6A. It's pretty straightforward with the teams up north and a little bit with the teams out east, because they kind of follow the format they did in the last cycle. When you look at the East, you have 6 teams plus 2 teams in the Maroon. Whereas over here, all 8 teams, as far as we know, none of those 8 teams have requested schedule relief. They're all just going to play each other weeks 1 through 7 like they did in the last cycle, and then they get 1 non-section game against a non-Maroon team week 8. So if we go over here, we'll look at potential 2025 opponents. We are going to look primarily at all the teams. Like I said, the Maroon teams, probably the most difficult. As of now, we only know 4 teams that requested schedule relief. Your Eastview, Hopkins, Park Cottage Grove, and Roseville. Of those 4, how do you have a conference of only 4 teams? So they'll play each other. That's only 3 weeks of the season. Like, we'll use Eastview for an example. They play Hopkins, Park Cottage Grove, and Roseville. They can do that weeks 2 through 5. But then weeks 1, and then, I guess it'd be 2, 3, and 4. Weeks 5 through 8, and then week 1, who do you play for those other 5 games? And if we go down to section 3 down here, the South, well, you have 7 teams there. Which 5 of those 7 get to play Eastview? And that's where it gets unfair. Like, Are you going to say, okay, well, the two teams we think are going to win are going to be Shakopee and Lakeville South, so they don't get to play Eastview? Well, how's that fair to Lakeville South or Shakopee? Because we're good, we don't have to play Eastview. But then they still have to play like a Prior Lake, a Rosemount, and do not count Rosemount out, even though they were 1-7 last year. Rosemount is Rosemount. They will be right back at it next year, and they will be bringing sauce. I've heard Egan and North might be down a little bit, because North especially, they lost a lot of seniors these last two classes. I don't think their next two classes are as good, but their freshmen that are going to be sophomores are pretty good, so give it another 2 years and Lakeville North will be right back at it. Egan should be, they might be down this coming season, but 2026 they'll be right back at it, and they've done a fantastic job, man. I mean, the fact that Egan had a winning record and was a 2 seed in the state tournament, that's just fantastic. Considering they used to go 0-9 every season, that's amazing. So here's kind of my theories. Well, that's covering the Maroon team. We don't know what's going to happen with them, and that's why it's tough to predict. So we're just going to go by sections now and kind of predict what the schedules are. Like I said, some of the sections are easier than others, but I do have a running theory. So the State High School League likes recent close playoff matchups, and then the rest of the teams are just kind of filled in after that. Like, for example, if you look back, Lakeville South, we played Champlain Park and Wayzata for our 2 non-section games in the last cycle. Well, if you look before COVID, we had a huge upset at Champlain Park in the 2018 season, and then we lost to Wayzata in the state semifinal in the 2018 season, or 2019 season, rather. So, who ended up on our schedule? Those two teams, recent playoff matchups. Rosemount, their Week 8 non-conference or non-section game was against Centennial. Who did Centennial lose to 2 years in a row in the playoffs? They lost to Rosemount. So I really think the State High School League likes those recent playoff matchups. I don't know if they look at star players or not when they're going through this stuff. Like, for example, on the last cycle, stupid phone, you had Edina matchup with Stillwater. Now, did they know when they were putting those schedules together that you'd have Mason West and Nick Kinsey, 2 sophomore quarterbacks that are going to be starting in the 2 best in the state? I do not know if the State High School League knew that in the spring of 2023 or winter of 2023 because they're just coming off their freshman years, or if that was just by chance we ended up with a great quarterback matchup. So yeah, stuff like that is still a question mark to me, but let's go into our sections. So first up, we'll go over Andover High School here. So you're guaranteed, as from what I expect, you're going to play the 7 other teams in your section, so that'll be weeks 1 through 7. So Anoka, Blaine, Centennial, Champlain, Coon Rapids, Osseo, Rogers. You're going to play those teams. It's, as far as I know, if they stick with the same scheduling model, it is impossible for them to play a Maroon team, because unless they decide to be a Maroon team themselves, but I do not think Coach DeVellis is going to want his guys to be a Maroon team. Andover's going to want to compete. And since they're a 5A team coming up, I do not know who their Week 8 matchup is going to be. If we go over here and they want to do it by similar records, so Andover was 6-2 last year in the regular season, Edina, Forest Lake, Minnetonka, Mounds View. All of those other 4 teams right there are all in different sections, so they're all eligible to be cross-section games for Week 8. But again, which one of those do you pick? I don't know. Mounds View is a little more run-heavy. Forest Lake, a little more run-heavy. Minnetonka, I mean, sure, they were 6-2, but that's the state runner-up right there, and they're going to be great next year. Caleb Francois is coming back. Second biggest high school in the state, well over 3,000 kids. I don't think it's going to be Minnetonka, but Edina, Forest Lake, or Mounds View, I see as possibilities. Anoka, next up. So same thing as Andover. They're going to play Andover plus all the other 6 teams in their section. Now, if you look at impossible teams, you'll notice I added Wayzata here. So Wayzata was Anoka's Week 8 matchup in the last cycle, so it's not possible for them to play Wayzata again in the next cycle, unless it's in the playoffs. They won't see them in the regular season. So what I did next was I looked at recent playoff opponents. So both Lakeville's, Mounds View, Tonka, Eastridge, White Bear. This is just over the last few seasons. And so, if you look at the last cycle, they played a team out of the West, which was, I want to say that was Minnetonka. Yep. So I don't think they're going to play Minnetonka again. One, because Minnetonka is likely going to be a state title contender. Anoka is going to be probably down next year since they lost all their senior talent, lost that 3-year starting quarterback. I could sort of see Eastridge or White Bear. White Bear just played a team from the north. I think they played Osseo Week 8 in the last cycle. Mounds View played STMA. Lakeville North did not play anyone from the North, though. They played 2 teams from the East. So, honestly, I could see Anoka Lakeville North being penciled in for Week 8. So, I know. Obviously, that's speculation. There's no lock-in there. But 2 teams that are going to be down from how they were. They played in the state quarterfinal last year. It was a close, tough defensive game. Lots of injuries for North. But I think that'd be a good matchup. And it's 2 opposite styles. I always like teams with 2 opposite styles. Lakeville North is a power I team. The only other team in 6A that still does that is Maple Grove, which Anoka sees. But other than that, Anoka does not see that. They see a lot of spread offenses. Lakeville North, being in the South Metro, does not see many spread offenses. And they probably won't, especially now that Farmington is switching from their spread to whatever that single wing offense is that they are calling it. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, so I really like matchups like that when you get to see something that you don't really see all that often, and it's good for the kids. If you have your kids just seeing spread offense, spread offense, spread offense every single week, well, it gets a little monotonous. You like to mix it up for the kids. Moving on to Blaine. So again, they're going to play all 7 section games. Their recent playoff matchups, they've had a lot with Rosemount. Minnetonka, Dynaforce Lake. They already played a team out of the West in the last cycle, which was Shakopee. So as you see, it's not possible for them to play Shakopee in the regular season next year. Playoffs, obviously still on the table, but Blaine will not play Shako in the regular season. Rosemount, Forest Lake. I'd say Rosemount is probably the most likely. They kind of boat raced Forest Lake in the, I don't think it was even a state game. I think it was just the section final, second round last year. So I don't think that'll be a matchup, but I do like Blaine Rosemount Week 8. So Blaine gets a team from the South, Anoka gets Lakeville North. That'd be their one non-section game. Okay, moving on to Centennial. So I kind of touched on this one. Their Week 8, their one non-conference game last time was Rosemount High School. And that's just such an awesome matchup. You have 2 teams that are option-based offenses, very physical on defense, great linemen, very well coached. Centennial's a lot more disciplined than Rosemount, but still very well coached. And Rosemount had beaten Centennial twice in the state tournament the previous 2 seasons leading up to that. And then Centennial won the last 2 matchups in the regular season and beat Rosemount on their way to winning the state title in 2023. And I want to say it was the playoffs, right? Yeah, because they killed Burnsville week 1. They beat Prior Lake in overtime in the second round of the playoffs. Third round was Rosemount, and then obviously fourth round was Lakeville South. So if you look at the recent playoff opponents that are not Rosemount and not Maroon teams, you got Prior Lake, Lakeville South, and Edina. I want to say they played Edina in the 2019-2020 regular season cycle, and they played them in the 2019 playoffs. Otherwise, I'd say Edina is my runner-up, but problem is Rosemount was in the South Division, and even though they haven't seen Prior Lake or Lakeville South recently, they already played a team in the South the last cycle. And it all depends on whether the State High School League want to mix it up. Again, Centennial, if you look at the teams around them, a lot of spread offenses up in that Section 5 up there in the north, and they are not. They are a very heavy flex bone, 31 personnel, triple option running offense. So seeing them match up with the Prior Lake or Lakeville South is probably a little bit better of a matchup, a little more change for them, but I don't see how the State High School League can resist that. Plus, that was the state title game in 2023, Centennial versus Edina. Mason West playing against another up-and-coming Centennial roster for his senior year. I don't see how they can resist that. We'll see. I think any of those 3 are still on the table. Not as hard set on Edina for Centennial. Champlin Park, I think that they're going to play an East team. So again, last cycle, they played all the teams in the North. They'll play all the teams in the North again. One team, aside from the Maroon teams, that is impossible for them to play in the regular season, Lakeville South. Week 8, last cycle, Lakeville South plays Champlin Park. So they never do repeat cycles. If you look at recent playoff matchups, you have Shakopee from 2023. They played Lakeville North and Eastridge in 24. And if you look in a lot of the recent playoffs, they've played a lot of East teams dating back to like 2019, 2021, 2022. So I think it's very likely that Champlin Park, especially at 3 and 5, is probably going to play a team out of the East. Woodbury, if we look at similar records, Champlin Park's there. I don't think they played White Bear in the playoffs, but, you know, I could see like a Woodbury or I guess even Stillwater. Mounds View did good and Eastridge did good. So it depends on how much change they want to have between those teams. So yeah, that's where I see Champlin Park. But essentially, you're going to play the other 7 teams in your section and then 1 team out of the East. Coon Rapids, if I could just know if Coon Rapids and Osseo have requested schedule relief or not, it'd make my life so much easier predicting. Because as of right now, I do not think either of them have requested schedule relief, and I kind of get why they wouldn't. You lose Maple Grove out of your section, you lose STMA. Now and sure you still have Centennial, but you have 2 5A teams replacing them in Rogers and Andover, and it's their first time in 6A. Like if I go to my last time played chart here, just looking at Andover hasn't played any of these teams since 2016. Coon Rapids, they played in 2019. But if you look at some of these other teams, okay, Rogers 2022, that's another 5A team. I mean, they haven't played Maple Grove since 2011. They haven't played 6A teams since 2016. Like, that's almost a decade. Other than Coon Rapids, but Coon Rapids played 5A schedules in the past. Maybe they'll do that again this year. Who's to say? But, yeah, if Coon Rapids could go down and do that, maybe they'll be more competitive. I guess we'll see. But if they don't request schedule relief, then you're going to have all 7 of those teams play Coon Rapids play all 7 of its division opponents. They're not going to play Farmington because in the last cycle, that was who they played week 8. Can't play the Maroon teams. I don't think they're going to get matched up with a Lakeville North or a Prior Lake or an EP. So those are their recent playoff opponents. Because Coon Rapids has generally been a 7th or 8th seed, that means they have to play a 1 or a 2 seed in the state tournament, which you get your Lakeville Norths. Prior Lake was a 2 seed in 2022. Yeah, that was the first round, was Prior Lake, Coon Rapids. Kaijon Cummings Cole almost won that game. They only lost by, I think it was like a touchdown or field goal, which is wild. Prior Lake should not be struggling that much against Coon Rapids. But I don't think they're going to get any of those matchups because you're getting an 0-8 team playing Lakeville North with 7-1. EP is still EP, even at 5-3 or 6-2, whatever they went. They're 5-3 right there. A 4-4 Prior Lake team is still physical. They're still going to take it to you. Mounds View was 6-2. I mean, it's hard to say. I have no idea with Coon Rapids. I don't want them to play Rosemount because Rosemount is going to be way better next year. You're not going to see a 1-7 Rosemount team again. And a 1-7 Rosemount team versus an 0-8 Coon Rapids team, I still think Rosemount would win by like 40 or 50 points, that Rosemount team. That's how well coached Rosemount is. Plus Coon Rapids has a first-year head coach, young guy. I think he's only like 32. So I more likely see them playing like a Woodbury. I think would be a good fit. And I put that for Osseo, which that makes sense there. But if they don't want to go that route, I could see Coon Rapids versus maybe a White Bear. We'll get to that when we talk about Section 4. But yeah, so Coon Rapids, total big question mark right there for sure. Just no idea. And Osseo is kind of the same thing. Osseo hasn't seen as much playoff success. They always end up being like between a 6 to 8 seed. They were 7th seed in this past state tournament. They gave Egan one amazing game, though. I mean, that was like down to the wire between those two. But I don't know what to do with them. They don't want to request schedule relief. Obviously, there's those rumors of maybe they've gotten a new head coach. I personally haven't seen anything about that. And as far as I know, they have not requested schedule relief. So same thing as the rest of the teams. They're going to play the other 7 teams in their section. So Andover, Anoka, Blaine, Centennial, Champlin, Coon Rapids, Rogers. It's impossible for them to play White Bear Lake because that's who they played in the last cycle, week 8. Can't have a repeat. And obviously they can't play Maroon teams because they don't have any Maroon teams in their section. And the Maroon teams just play each other. So then that comes up with Egan, Woodbury, and Wyzetta as your recent playoff opponents. Egan, I expect to be down, so I could see Egan being there. They played a team from the East, White Bear Lake, last cycle, so that's why Woodbury kind of isn't on my radar as much for them. And Wyzetta's probably a little bit too good to match up with Osseo. I don't know, that's a tough one. I could see potentially an Osseo Wyzetta, but I think there's just a little bit too much of a talent discrepancy for those two to play, so I think most likely we're going to see an Osseo-Egan rematch, especially because that just happened last year. And if that's the case, I'm going to say Egan goes here. And then since that opens up, Osseo's going to play Egan, they're not going to play Woodbury. That means up here we can assign Woodbury to Coon Rapids. That'll be a Week 18 matchup, most likely. And then to another newcomer down here. Rogers High School. Royals, blue and black. 11 personnel offense, 3-4 defense. They've been physical in the past, good run team, even though they do it out of a spread. They do a lot of power reads, a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of zones and powers with the running back. Sidecar offense instead of pistol spread. I don't know how they're going to stack up to 6A. So going back to my last times played, we'll go over to Rogers High School here. Boom. So we'll just highlight the whole column. So looking down, if you look at the last, you know what? This makes it easier. We'll go Rogers here, highlight that, scroll it down, then you can see the teams. So, I mean, they played Andover because it's a 5A team. Coon Rapids used to play 5A, so they matched up with them. But, I mean, like, if you look, it's just full of a lot of nevers around here. They just haven't played a lot of these teams. Moorhead's 5A, or was 5A. But if you look, they've only played 2 6A teams that are 6A this year. They played Edina back in 2004. I was in 2nd grade the last time Rogers matched up with a 6A, like, in 6A team. When 6A didn't even exist back then. I think 6A started in 2012, so... And the only other matchup they've had was they used to be, like, arch rivals with STMA. Kind of going back to our section map here, if we zoom in, Rogers and St. Michael Albertville are right here. Actually, some of Albertville and St. Michael actually goes into the Rogers borders right there. So I would, and, you know, talking with Coach Franz, he said he'd love to match up with STMA and kind of renew that rivalry, because that's really the only team they've seen. And this is when STMA was still in 5A, and I don't think they won the title in 2016, but they did win the title in 2015 for 5A, and then 2017, because that community was growing so much, they get bumped up to 6A and never looked back, which I think is going to happen with Rogers. Rogers actually had to close open enrollment at their high school, because they're just growing that quickly. So I definitely think Rogers is going to stick around in 6A for a while, as is Moorhead. But that's pretty much what sections are going to be, and it makes it easy for predicting Rogers' schedule. Like the rest of the teams in their section, weeks 1 through 7, they're going to play all of these goofballs up here. They're going to see a lot of spreads. Obviously, you're going to see 2 run-heavy teams with Centennial and Champlin. Never count Blaine's offense out of anything. Andover, they have experience with Andover. You know how explosive they can be. You should be able to beat Coon Rapids and Osseo. I think those will be 2 good games. Obviously, they're not going to play a Maroon team. As far as I know, they've not requested to be Maroon. I don't think they will be, now that they know they're up in that the north section instead of the west. And like I said, who was their one rival? The most recent team they played in 6A? St. Michael Albertville. That's their old rival, and it just so happens they're in different sections. Section 5, Section 6. So, what better game to have week 8 for Rogers than to play STMA? I absolutely love that as a matchup. Yeah, and I mean, STMA has changed. If you think about the last time that they played each other, where was the scroll over here? 2016 is the last time they matched up. STMA was still running like unbalanced heavy eye formations. Now they're a pistol spread and pistol eye. They I think just last year they switched from a 4-3 to a 3-4, which, you know, I'm going to go look at QRFs. Go back to football, section standings, pull up 6A. St. Michael Albertville definitely had a down year. Normally, they're one of the best defensive teams in all of 5A, or 6A. They're usually low scoring, but they do not give up points at all. Kind of like the early 2010s, mid 2010s Memphis Grizzlies, grit and grind era. I guess they got Marc Gasol out there playing for them. Who knows? But yeah, you can see they traditionally gave up more points than they have in the past this last season. And that's just kind of the way it goes when you switch up your defense. Kids have to get used to a new system. Coaches have to learn the new system and implement it effectively. It's very hard. You'd think it's just, oh, you take out a lineman, you put in a linebacker. There are so many differences between 4-3 and 3-4. You kind of learned that the hard way at Lakeville South last year. But hey, learn and you improve from it. That's all you can do. I'm going to skip section 3 for right now. We're going to move on to the East next. So we'll start with Eastridge. For section 4, I don't think your schedules are going to change all that much, if at all. I think you're still going to play the other 5 teams in your section, and then you're probably going to play Park or Roseville for your one Maroon game in your section. Like I said, we do know that Park and Roseville requested schedule relief. They'll probably be in the Maroon division, and then the East District itself will just be these 6 teams like it was last cycle. So I don't think much is going to change for them. The only thing that we can speculate on, which is going to be kind of cool, is their 2 non-district games. So they get 2 games outside of their district, and I guess technically outside of their section. We'll do Eastridge first. So last cycle, Eastridge played Lakeville North, and who else did they play? Rochester Mayo, which I didn't put on here because Mayo's no longer 6A, so obviously you can't have Mayo on there. If you look at their recent playoff matchups, you got Anoka. Obviously, they played Lakeville South. They played Champlain Park. They played Prior Lake. And Lakeville South was a close matchup, man. We highly underestimated Coach Fritzy and Tanner Zalonsky. If you look up the way they were calling plays against us in that 2023 state quarterfinal, I mean, they were dotting us up, definitely. Thankfully, they weren't the best at stopping the power T, but man, they know how to call games on offense over there for sure. So if you look at those last cycle, like I said, they played Lakeville North and Mayo. Both those teams were out of the South. So to give them a little bit more variety, I don't think you're going to see a Prior Lake or a Lakeville South. I think more likely, and Maple Grove's probably too good. I think you're going to see an Anoka or a Champlain Park if you're Eastridge. You're going to play one of those teams out of the North. And then if you do play a team out of the South, I put Prior Lake on there because, yes, they're a recent playoff matchup. Prior Lake lost to Tanner Zalonsky his junior year. I think it was 28-27. It was very close. And Prior Lake, even though they are going to be in the South District this year, last cycle they were out in the West. So I think that's enough of a change up. We'll see how that goes, though. But yeah, if I had to pick, they're going to play Anoka or Champlain week 8, and then probably week 7 or week 1, they're going to face Prior Lake. The only drawback is that Prior Lake did play 2 teams out of the East last year. They played, who'd they play? Forest Lake was a week 1 matchup, and then I want to say week 7 or 8, they played Woodbury, and then whichever other one was Buffalo. So, yeah, that's my only holdback on that, is that Prior Lake's seen enough teams out of the East, but, it's so hard to decide what to do with Prior Lake. You're already going to get a whole bunch of new games because you're switching sections. You go from playing Edina, Minnetonka, Wayzata, EP, and whoever else is the other one out there. You're still going to see Shako, but you're not going to see those 4 teams. Instead, North, South, Farmington, Egan, Rosemount. Totally different from those other schools. So they're going to have enough of a culture shock at Prior Lake and Shakopee. Next up, we're going to look at the Forest Lake Rangers. 6-2 last year. Very good season. So going back, they played Prior Lake and they played Egan. They're very competitive with both games. So obviously it's going to be impossible for them to play those 2 in the next cycle, and kind of go into that pattern, the theory I was talking about at the top, how they like recent playoff matchups. You go back to the 2022 playoffs, I want to say the first round, the 4-5 matchup was Egan versus Forest Lake, and then funny enough, next season, you get Egan versus Forest Lake week 7, so they definitely plan that stuff out. But your section games, obviously you're going to play your 5 opponents in your district right here. You're going to play either Park or Roseville for your Maroon game, most likely. You can't play Eastview, Hopkins because there are other Maroon teams in other sections. Prior Lake, Egan were last cycle. If you look at their other recent playoff teams, they have Wayzata and Blaine, so they played a team out of the South, the West. They didn't play anybody out of the North. If I didn't pencil in Blaine for Rosemount, another possible contender would be Blaine Forest Lake. Like I said, Forest Lake did get blown out, but possibility. Wayzata will be back up a little bit. I don't think they'll be quite in the middle of the pack now that they have a little bit of relief with Shakopee and Prior Lake leaving their section. And I think Forest Lake actually beat them pretty good in 2023. I think it was like 31-7 was the final score, and that was at Forest Lake. So I could see that being another matchup. Wayzata Forest Lake, pencil. You could probably do that week 1. Wayzata Forest Lake. There you go. Or maybe like a week 7 matchup. And then the other one, you could see Blaine week 8. Who knows? All depends. Lakeville North. I think they've seen them enough. They've seen them in the playoffs recently. They saw them in the cycle before that, the 21-22 cycle. They had Lakeville North. I don't think they're going to bump into them again. I could see a Farmington matchup, actually. If they hadn't already played a team in the South, and Farmington, I don't think played a team out. Yeah, they played Mounds View, so they played a team in the East. But, I mean, you're only going to have so many options. I could definitely see them flashing right there. Okay, next up, Mounds View. You look at Mounds View, they 6-2. They won the section, just barely. They had that tiebreaker over Forest Lake. And they're gonna play their 5 teams in their section again, which is nice. And then game number 6, obviously Maroon game, either Park or Roseville. I'm gonna say they played Park in the last cycle, maybe Roseville. I don't remember the exact matchups for that section, but they'll play one of those 2. And then their 2 non-conference impossible games, Farmington and STMA were the last cycle. Farmington week 1, STMA week 8, so they will not see a repeat of those. And then obviously you can't play other Maroon teams. And this is one I really like, because in the last state quarterfinal, we had Shakopee versus Mounds View. And I thought that was just awesome. Mounds View also beat Prior Lake, Prior Lake the year before. And then the year before that, they lost to Prior Lake 15-17, and I think that was a 4-5 matchup. So I was originally going to put Prior Lake here, but like I said, Prior Lake already played 2 teams out of the East in the last cycle, being Woodbury and Forest Lake, so I don't know if they're going to give them more teams out of the East, but I could see Mounds View versus Prior Lake. Otherwise, I think a Mounds View Shakopee rematch is pretty likely. Champlin Park I could see, but again, that would have to be week 8. And what did I say for Champlin up here? Team out of the East, Mounds View's up there, and if Woodbury's penciled in, I could see Champlin playing Eastridge or Mounds View, so yeah, we can pencil those 2 in for Champlin. Stillwater. Okay, there's been a lot of discussion around Stillwater lately. Their stud quarterback, Nick Kinsey, is leaving for Ohio, and he was only a junior, so you're going to have a new quarterback. No one knows what the offense is going to look like. Their running back this last year, fantastic. I don't know if he was a junior or a senior, so no idea if he'll be back. And a lot of people are like, oh, why was Stillwater offense, why was the record so much worse this past season? If you haven't watched any Stillwater film, I get why you'd see that. They completely changed. They went from, in 2023, like 10 personnel, pistol spread, lots of passing, to more 21 eye personnel in the last season, 2024. Which they've always historically done. If you go back to like the 80s, and even the 90s, Stillwater's always been an I formation team. It's only recently that they've gotten into the spread. But from what I've heard, they just didn't have the talent at receiver last year to justify being in 10 personnel, and they had a really good running back. And I think Stillwater's like the 7th or 8th biggest school in the state. Where are they at up here? Yeah, there they are. I want to say that they're 8, and then Shaco's 9, White Bear's 10, so... And very impressive. They got plenty of kids to choose from. So, change your offense, do whatever you want to do, whatever works best with the kids you have. If you got a great fullback and running back, perfect. Do I personnel stuff. If you have great receivers without a fullback type kid, do your spread stuff. And if you have a quarterback that can get it, do your spread stuff. White Bear Lake. Okay, so week 1, White Bear Lake unfortunately had to play Minnetonka. They started out 0-5, then rattled out a 3-game winning streak at the end. And then, I don't remember who they played in the playoffs, but assuming they lost first round. Minnetonka, Osseo, impossible to play those 2. It's impossible to play Eastview Hopkins because they're Maroon teams from other sections. And then I think I penciled in Egan week 1. This is another team that I like. The White Bear Lake Egan matchup was more recent. I could see White Bear and Anoka going back up to Anoka. I don't know if I mentioned White Bear up there, but yep. Could definitely see White Bear Anoka week 8. I think Lakeville North, Lakeville South schools are probably a little bit too much out of the league of White Bear Lake. Maybe you could see Lakeville North if they're expecting to be down a little bit next year, but I don't think that's enough of a discrepancy to get that kind of a lopsided matchup. But then again, Minnetonka was 7-1 the year before this, and White Bear Lake I think was 5-3. So they were a little bit closer in talent, but yeah, didn't turn out that way when they played. Who knew Minnetonka was going to explode onto the scene these last 2 years? Especially this past year, 2024. Egan, I kind of like. I think they'll be down a little bit. So, Egan, White Bear, I could definitely see as a week 1 matchup. That'd be good. So, yeah, Egan could play Osseo week 8. They could play White Bear Lake week 1. Boom, there you go. Or week 7, whichever. And then give them the Maroon game week 1. Woodbury. So, obviously, you're going to have your 5 section games. You're going to get Parker, Roseville as your 1 Maroon game. So, that takes care of 6 games in your section. They cannot play Prior Lake or EP. I don't know who at the State High School League did schedules for the last cycle, but poor Woodbury. The fact you have to play Prior Lake and Eden Prairie for your non-section games, that's just wild. If you look at recent playoff matchups, Rosemount, Champlin were pretty much the only 2 that they've had because they haven't gotten all that far in the playoffs since like 2018 when they played Lakeville South. That was in the state quarterfinal, I want to say. So, yeah, who knows about that. But, Rosemount I penciled in because similar records, but at the same time, Rosemount's going to be back on the ups. Woodbury, I have no idea. I mean, Woodbury could be a 2 seed any given year, or they could be a 6 seed. And you would not be able to tell. They're so hard for me to know where Woodbury might fall. And that's probably why they ended up with Prior Lake EP. Maybe they were really good in the 21-22 season. So the State High School League said, all right, here you go, play the tough teams. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Rosemount, maybe Champlin. Woodbury is probably one of the hardest for me to decide who they're going to play. What did I say up here? Who did I pencil Woodbury in? Coon Rapids, I could see that week 8, definitely. And then you can give them a tougher opponent. If they're going to play all that, plus Park of Roseville, and then you give them Coon Rapids week 8, you can give them like a Rosemount week 1. That'd be fine. They can have a tough game in there. Okay, so now that we've done all of the East and all of the North, this is where it gets really difficult to predict schedule. So going back to the current districts, South and the West both have 7 teams in them, and only one of those 7 teams requested schedule relief, being Eastview for the South and Hopkins for the West. And kind of like I was talking about earlier with Eastview, suppose Lakeville South, you get to play... here's Lakeville South. Suppose you get to play Egan, Farmington North, Prior Lake, Rosemount, Shako. That's already 6 games. You only get 6 section games and 2 non-section games. So that means there's no room for Eastview. And if we do get room for Eastview, then that means that one of these teams we would not play. But how do you get to decide that? Do we just get to be like, oh, we want to play Eastview instead of a 7-1 Shakopee team? Like, no, that's not really fair. And then you get all these other teams, like suppose Lakeville South and Shakopee don't or get to play Eastview. That means the rest of these teams probably wouldn't. And then they're like, hey, wait a minute. Why is it fair that those two get the easy game against Eastview, but we don't? Well, that's a great question. So I have no idea how the State High School League is going to handle that, and I can't really predict what the section games are going to be for those sections. All I know is that all these teams are going to play 6 games against these other teams in here, whether it be Eastview and these other, however they decide to do that. You are going to have 6 section games, and we're all going to have 2 non-section games. So same thing down here with the West. All these teams are likely going to play each other to some extent. You get 6 of those plus the Hopkins game, and then you get 2 non-section games. Which I really hope we get an Edina Moore. If we get Edina Moorhead week 1, that'd be awesome. You know what? Actually, that wouldn't be week 1 because week 1 would be non-section game. I'm hoping we get Edina Moorhead like weeks 2 through 6 next year. Out of any of these 2 teams I'd like to see play each other, I want Edina versus Moorhead. STMA and Maple Grove have seen each other enough. Maple Grove can play the other teams. You got 2 teams that went 8-0 last year. I could see Maple Grove and Moorhead clashing. If we zoom out of the map here for sections, Maple Grove is out here and Moorhead's there. So, they're the 3rd closest team to Moorhead, technically speaking. So, I could see that happening. I guess, they're the 3rd closest because it's just right off 94 there. So definitely would love to see Maple Grove Moorhead. But let's talk about the non-section games. So we'll start off with Section 3 again. Egan, last cycle, they played Edina and Forest Lake, so it's not possible to play those 2. You're not going to play other Maroon teams, so Hopkins, Park, Roseville are off the table for the regular season. Like I said, you're going to play 6 games from some teams in your section. Recent playoff opponents. EP, probably not going to happen. I imagine EP is a little bit out of Egan's league, especially if Egan's been down a little bit. I think we talked about them playing Osseo week 8. Could definitely see that. I got that penciled in there. And I think we were just talking about Egan playing White Bear Lake, who's another recent playoff matchup. If we look right there, White Bear Lake. So I did say team out of the North. They already played a team out of the East being Forest Lake, and Forest Lake has won like every matchup versus Egan. But it's a very different kind of team out of that East section. Forest Lake is very run-heavy. They're a pistol option team, do a lot of veer, whereas White Bear Lake used to be like wing twins and then like a lot of spread stuff. Apparently, they're changing their offense. I've heard they're going to be a wing T this next year, which is very run-heavy. And that's kind of my only drawback, because if you look at this section, you've got Flexbone run heavy. They're switching to a single wing run heavy. Power I run heavy. Power T run heavy. Wing T run heavy. Triple option, some Flexbone. I don't know. Rosemount does everything. It all depends on what teams they lost to the previous season, and that's what their playbook's going to be next year. And then Shakopee, Flexbone run heavy. So, they already see enough wing T and run heavy teams. Do you really want to add another one onto that docket? Yeah, Dyna was a recent playoff matchup, which again is why I think it was added in the previous cycle. EP is another wing T. I don't see that as happening. So I do think White Bear, Osseo is like the one I'm going to pencil in because they're 11 personnel. I definitely think that week 8 we're going to get Egan Osseo. But as far as week 1 or 7 for the other non-section game, it's just so hard to tell. That's probably going to be another random one. Hey, maybe an Andover. That'd be nice. Andover gets to see a second Flexbone team. Egan gets to see a spread team they don't normally see. They'd easily see that. Week 8. Well, no, you can't do that because those teams only get one non-section game. Ugh, and they're already playing Osseo out of the north, so it couldn't be Andover. Who else do we have to pick from? How about maybe a Stillwater or a Woodbury or Eastridge? I could see that. Week 1, Woodbury and Egan do it. Why not? Woodbury doesn't see a whole lot of run teams, so that makes sense. All right, next up, Farmington. As I kind of preluded to earlier, Farmington's redoing their offense. They're going to a single wing this next season. So they're going to play 6 conference games. It's impossible for them to play Coon Rapids or Mounds View. Those were their non-section opponents last cycle. Hopkins Park, Roseville, Maroon teams, can't play them. If we look at recent playoff matchups, oh boy, dude, Farmington. That's like Murderer's Row right there. Minnetonka, Edina, Shako, and EP. Oof. And you played a team out of the East and the North. You have not played a team out of the West in a while. The only thing you've got going for you is that your section is tough and loaded with run-heavy teams. But who are the non-run-heavy teams here? Edina. Not entirely true. Edina is much more balanced attack. People say they're not run-heavy because they're a spread. But if you watch the number of times they run inside zone or GH counter, it's ridiculous. And I don't know if they do full-on RPOs with it. As far as I know, the only teams that do RPOs are Moorhead, obviously. YZ are kind of the pioneers of it in 6A. And I think Park Cottage Grove has done it a little bit. But I don't know how that's working out for Park. I guess we'll see. But yeah, I don't know if Edina does it. I do like the Farmington Edina matchup. Edina did just play a team out of the South, being Egan. But with how heavy their schedule is down here, like I said, they're going to play a lot of these teams. I think Farmington is another likely team. So we'll pencil in Edina Farmington. We'll say that's a week 1 game because Edina, we got a special game. I think we were talking about them playing Centennial for week 8. So yeah, it's going to be week 8 for Edina most likely. EP, I don't think that's going to happen. Even though they had the same record last year, you have a 5-3 EP in Farmington. No offense, Farmington. I don't think even if you're 5-3 and EP's 5-3, that's going to end well for Farmington. So I don't see that happening. That's going to be another just random team. They're probably going to pick who else is 5-3. I could see an Anoka Farmington matchup. Blaine, I think we assigned to Rosemount. Eastridge, another possibility. So yeah, any of those other teams. Even 4-4 teams are 6-2. They played Mounds View. I could see Farmington Forest Lake get the 2 schools to start with the letter F and 6A to play each other. Not Centennial. Rogers is going to play STMA, so probably not Rogers. Stillwater's another intriguing choice. Like I said, you want to give Farmington another spread team? I could see them playing Stillwater. So next up, the Panthers of Lakeville North. Oh boy. So I kind of penciled in some of these games because these are rivalry games. And you know what? I can probably do this too. Rosemount is definitely going to play Egan. And Egan is definitely going to play Rosemount. Those are just rivalry games within districts. And I mean, these two aren't in the same district, but Prior Lake Shakopee, historic rivalry, they're going to play each other. So Lakeville North and Lakeville South are going to play. I'd be absolutely baffled if the State High School League released schedules and Lakeville North and Lakeville South did not play each other in the regular season. That has to happen. So looking at that, yeah, I think you're going to be guaranteed to play South. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, so us at Lakeville South, who are the 3 teams that we've seen every year, regardless of the weird gold versus maroon split in the 21 cycle? If you go back before that to like 2017, 2018, or the 2019, 2020, the teams we've always played are Rosemount, Lakeville North, and Farmington. So I'm just going to pencil those in. I think we are going to play those teams for sure. Rosemount, I got to do alphabetical, don't I? So Farmington, Lakeville North, Rosemount, I am penciling those all in for South. I think it's pretty much locked in that regardless of who else in the section we play, we are going to play those 3. And then Lakeville North played 2 teams out of the East last cycle. They played Mounds View, and then who was the other one they played? Oh no, I'm looking at Farmington. Lakeville North. They played Eastridge and Stillwater. That was it. Stillwater was week 1. Eastridge was week 7. Speaking of which, how about Eastridge with that huge upset of Lakeville North week 7? That, I think it was like 41-17 or something. Eastridge's defense came to play. Now, in Lakeville North's defense, they had a ton of injuries by that point in the season. They were not the full-strength Panthers that they could be. But it's still Lakeville North at Lakeville North, and you go in there and bring the sauce. We'll take that any day. So if we look at recent playoff matchups, and this is one that I do like a little bit, they played teams out of the East, so get the teams out of the East out of here. Forest Lake, not as likely, especially because they played them 2 cycles ago. That leaves us with Anoka, Champlain Park, and EP. I was a little bit hesitant on Champlain Park because Champlain Park, who they play in the last cycle, Lakeville South. Now you're going to give them the other school from Lakeville. I don't think that's as likely. But EP Lakeville North, that was a great state quarterfinal. Both teams were 5-3, or no, Lakeville North was 7-1. EP was only 5-3. Both teams kind of struggled last season. Lakeville North with injuries, EP just with stiff competition. I would absolutely love week 1, Eden Prairie versus Lakeville North. Like I said, Lakeville North hasn't played anyone out of the East. EP, I don't think played anyone out of the South. Well, Rochester Mayo, but I don't know if that counts. And the other team they played was Woodbury, which East. So give them a real team out of the South. Lakeville North, Woodbury, Lakeville North, EP, pencil it in week 1. Absolutely killer start to the season. And then Anoka, that'd be a great matchup at the end. I know I said Anoka's going to be down. That's the one thing holding me back from that, whereas Champlain I think will still be good. So it all just depends on what they want. And then Forest Lake was last cycle, not as likely. But yeah, week 8, Anoka, Champlain Park, I could see it. And then week 1 or 7, Lakeville North versus EP. Talk about the Cougars, Lakeville South. So, I think I mentioned this way back at the beginning of the video. Wayzata and Champlain were our 2 non-section games, so we're not going to play them. Hopkins Park, Roseville, those teams are in the Maroon Division, and they're not in our section, so it's pretty much impossible to play them. And then we're going to talk about recent playoff matchups. So, as a team that's won a lot in the playoffs, you got a lot of people that kind of want to take your head off. As you see, you got a long list of enemies here. So let's go through them one by one. Centennial, we lost to in the state semifinal in 2023. That'd be a good matchup. But Centennial did just play a team out of the South, that being Rosemount, which is why they did not advance to my other column. And we played somebody out of the West, or out of the North, which was Champlain in the last cycle. So I think we might get a team out of the East. And also we were down last year. Gave up a lot more points than we have in previous seasons. Usually Lakeville South is pretty stout on defense in our rating, but if you look, we were giving up, I mean, we scored 34.6 a game, which I want to say that was the second best in 6A. Obviously, Maple Grove was number 1, and did we beat Edina? Edina was only 32, so we were the best, or the second best offense in all of 6A in the last season, but defense was giving up 25 points a game, so a little bit difficult to go far in the playoffs when you're doing that. I mean, if you compare to all the other teams that went a little further than us, Lakeville North obviously only gave up 18. Mounds View only gave up 14. Forest Lake until they ran into Blaine. Maple Grove giving up 11. Even Anoka, they gave up some, but Centennial obviously doesn't give up a whole lot. They didn't go very far, though. They kind of got a little bit of a shell shock against Rochester Mayo. 15.4. Obviously, all the West teams play really solid defense. EP still plays great defense, even at 5-3. Rosemount is one I didn't mention. They're under 20 points a game. Eastview, or no, might be the wrong site. They're right around 20, even considering they had like no offensive pulse last season. That's still incredible. It's a lot better than we did, or Farmington, or Mayo. Speaking of which, you want to see a wild Rosemount QRF points for and against. We'll go back to the 22-23 season. Look at that. QRF of 183.4. I don't know that I've ever seen it higher than that. Gave up less than 10 points a game while averaging 4 touchdowns a game. That is absolutely wild numbers. So, huge shout out to Rosemount for that. You never underestimate Rosemount. Very well coached. But, so yeah, Centennial, no. Eastridge was also 5-3. We only beat them by 1 point when they had Tanner Zolonsky in the 2023 state quarterfinal. So I definitely see Eastridge as one of my top contenders. But again, who did Eastridge play in the last cycle? Kind of like Champlain, they played the other Lakeville school. So do they really want to switch those and make them play the other Lakeville school? Like, sure, we're different enough, power I versus power T, but it's still the same concept. We want to run the ball at you to set up play action, and we're going to be very physical. So that's the only thing kind of holding me back there. Got Stillwater, who 2022 state quarterfinal. I could see that. Well, I used to be able to see that. If Nick Kinsey was still there, I absolutely love that matchup. But again, much like Eastridge, who did Stillwater play in the last cycle? Lakeville North. So I don't think they're going to make them play the other Lakeville school. And if you look at like similar records, maybe a Forest Lake or a Mounds View, but both of those teams also played teams from the South. As we talked about, Mounds View played Farmington. Forest Lake obviously played Egan. So I don't know if they're going to give either of those teams Lakeville South. Maybe. We'll see about that. And if you want to go back to 2021 state semifinal, we played STMA. And since STMA is not in the North, they do get 2 non-section games this year. So if STMA gets Rogers week 8, then either week 7 or week 1, we could see Lakeville South STMA, which is why I moved them up. Anoka, they only get the 1 non-conference game, and we penciled it in for somebody else. I don't think it's as likely we're going to play Anoka, especially if Anoka's expected to be down a little bit next year. I don't think that's going to happen. But obviously the elephants on the list, Maple Grove. Oh boy. I mean, I'd love to play Maple Grove, man. They're graduating an amazing class. It'll be Coach Spurrell's 2nd season. I think we're going to get to see a little bit more of what Maple Grove is made of. This is the post-Lombardi year. They had all that talent left over, and now it's kind of a transition, like, deeper into the new regime, if you know what I mean. So I guess we'll just see how that plays out. I don't know if Maple Grove, I don't think they're going to be as good. Okay, it's still Maple Grove. They're still going to be like a 7-1 or 6-2 team, even playing in the West section, but I don't know. I could see STMA and Maple Grove being Lakeville South's 2 non-section games. You could play Maple Grove week 8, and then you play STMA week 1. There you go. Or you could play in week 7 and 8 and get a Maroon team week 1. Who knows? I guess we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, that would be absolutely. But hey, if you want to be the best, you got to play the best. We'll take on Prior Lake, Shako, Rosemount, North, and then if we have to go through STMA and Maple Grove as well, do that too. The other thing that I had not considered that I want to talk about, because I know we played a team out of the West, but what if we brought in a team from the West that wasn't always there? So I got logic behind this, and I'm going to add Lakeville South over here to Moorhead. So, for those that don't know, Lakeville South won the state title in 2020. Obviously, we didn't have the full state tournament because of COVID and everything, but the Associated Press voted on the state champion, the mythical state champions for the different classes in Minnesota. Lakeville South was the mythical 6A state champion. Moorhead was the mythical 5A state champion. So you have 2 teams that won mythical titles, and now they're in the same class, and they have a chance to play each other. Sure, I think we're like the furthest 2 teams away, other than like I think Stillwater might be a little bit further from Moorhead than us. But you know, aside from that, I think that'd be an amazing week 1 matchup. Lakeville South versus Moorhead. You have Jet Feeney, Coach Feeney. They're coming into 6A and when was the last time Moorhead played any teams in 6A? Go look at Moorhead. So I haven't filled it out, but I don't think they played any of these teams in forever. Andover was 2015, but that was 5A. Rogers, they played in 2024, and they played STMA back in 2016. So it's been a hot minute since they've had to play literally anybody. I imagine they're going to be like Rogers, where they just haven't played anybody. So yeah, absolutely week 1 Moorhead, and I also love teams of different philosophies going against each other. When you have a run-heavy, control-the-clock team playing against RPO spread offense that likes to run the ball, a nice balanced attack, I'd actually say, if not a little more run heavy. Even though, you know, Jet Feeney and all that, they're definitely more of a run heavy team. Because it sets up the young quarterback to make all those beautiful throws, and dang, does he have a nice spiral. So yeah, absolutely, I could see. I'm gonna add that in. I'm gonna say Moorhead. That goes underneath Maple Grove. I gotta be able to spell. Go up. Moorhead. Easily could see Moorhead Lakeville South week 1. And Moorhead was 8-0 in 5A. They show they're ready for 6A. Bring on a physical 6A team week 1. Give them the taste of the sauce. When was the last time that they played Elk River? That's my only thought, because Elk River also runs the Power T, and that might be the only exposure they've ever had to it. So, yeah, Lakeville South, bring on Moorhead, man. I'd love that week 1. Give it to us. Prior Lake. So I penciled in Shakopee because those two are rivals. You're going to get the Prior Lake Shaco matchup. Then 5 other section games. Who knows what that'll end up being since we have a Maroon team. Only 1 Maroon team. They played Forest Lake Woodbury in the last cycle. Not going to play either of those again. You're not going to play Maroon teams from another section. So Hopkins, Park, Roseville are off the board. If you look at playoff matchups, again, you have a team out of the East and a team out of the East. So what do you do with Prior Lake? Who do you play? To me, this is going to be a random one. Centennial, I already said they're likely to play Edina. If you did want to have Centennial Prior Lake week 8, I could see that too. If you don't want to give Edina Centennial, because I know Edina already plays a lot of other run-heavy teams, and Centennial wants to play a run-heavy team as opposed to a spread team. So, yeah, I do like Centennial Prior Lake week 8. But then, who do you play week 1 or 7 for your other non-Maroon game? Mounds View and Eastridge are all other teams. I guess I could see STMA because they're in the West. But I already penciled in STMA to play Rogers and Lakeville South. So, you know, if you're STMA, I think there's a good chance that you play Rogers, then either Lakeville South and Prior Lake. We'll get to that down here. Because now that STMA is in the West. Rogers, oh, look at that. Rogers, Prior Lake, Lakeville South. Who would have thought? So yeah, that's what Prior Lake has to look forward to. I don't think they're going to get easy games out of the East anymore. Rosemount. So I think the State High School League just gets a kick out of giving Rosemount tough schedules. They've always had some of the most difficult schedules in 6A. Like if you go back to my Minnesota scores here. So we'll click on Rosemount High School. There's Rosemount Irish. So in the last cycle, obviously Eastview not as good, but then you get to play all this slew of other teams in Section 3. Farmington maybe not as good as the others. Mayo still held their own. You get North, Egan, and Lakeville South, and then once you're done with your section play, you got to go to Shakopee and then play Centennial, both run-heavy teams, and you just get beat up and bruised. Like, they are so mean. And then go into the previous cycle. This is when Rosemount, I think this was their undefeated year, except when they lost in the state final to Maple Grove. Look at this. Egan, Edina, North, EP, South, Farmington, Prior Lake. And then, Burnsville, you got to go by Roseville. But then you got to play Wyzetta, Centennial, Eden Prairie, Maple Grove. Like, Rosemount has always had some of the toughest schedules in 6A. Always. So with that in mind, they're going to play Egan because that's their district rival. They're probably going to be just like us. They're going to play North, and they're going to play Lakeville South. So teams they can't play. Centennial, unfortunately, is off the board. Shakopee's in their section, so they're probably going to match up with Shakopee again. And then they're not going to play the other 3 Maroon teams from other sections. If you look at recent playoff matchups, I think Blaine was one that I penciled in for week 8, and I like that. You have a run-heavy team versus a spread run-heavy team. So you kind of get that variety, and I really like that. So Rosemount, Blaine, week 8, but then who do you give them week 1 or 7? Woodbury, kind of like I was talking about with the schedules up here. You had a 2-6 Woodbury last year, play a 1-7 Rosemount. Rosemount's probably winning that game by 30 or 40 points. Like that's how well coached Rosemount is, and they're very big and physical. Even in a down year where they maybe don't have as many athletes, you never can count out the Irish ever. So, and the other one I kind of liked was Forest Lake. So if they need to play a team out of the East, I could see a Mounds View or Forest Lake, just to give them a little bit of a different flavor. I don't know when the last time they matched up in the playoffs was, if ever. I could also see Wyzetta. I don't know if they'd give Wyzetta a week 1 matchup versus Rosemount after they just had week 1 versus Lakeville South, but I'm going to throw a Wyzetta on there just for fun. And I just realized I was out of order. Forest Lake should go below Blaine. Well, if I actually hit Control Enter instead of regular Enter, there we go. Forest Lake, pencil them in. So yeah, we'll see what plays out there. Then if we go over to Shakopee, okay, oof. I know Shakopee is, I don't know if they're happy about this or not, but gotta address the elephant in the room. So last year, if we go back a year on our sections, go to 6A, Shakopee was in Section 6, the West. They were 7-1, and Atonka was 6-2. Shakopee, after they beat Blaine in a close game week 8, they thought they earned the 1 seed because Tonka lost that same time to Maple Grove to fall to 6-2. As we'll get into in a minute, though, with state brackets for playoffs for 6A, those are the state brackets. But all the 4 sections are seeded 1 through 8, and those are voted on by the coaches in that section. So, for example, we'll do section 3 because that's not really changing. You'd have Coach Betten, Coach Gegenheimer, Coach Burke, Coach Vossen, Coach Johnson, Coach Erdman. What are we missing? Eastview, Coach Buckley, and then Coach Piper from Farmington. Those 8 coaches would all email each other in a little chain and would just give their votes 1 through 8 of what they think the section seating should be, and they all vote on where the teams fall. Then that is what the state high school league uses to seed the teams, essentially. And if you go to section 6 in that last cycle, Shakopee, who was 7-1, got 0 first place. I think they got 1 first place vote actually from Coach Betten. I don't know if you can vote for yourself. I don't know how that works. But nobody else gave them a first place vote. Everyone else gave Minnetonka the first place vote. I know Coach Betten obviously was really unhappy about that. If you've seen the Randy Shaver 2024 6A playoff selection show, you can see poor guy's pretty fired up there. But yeah, that's what it comes, because if you look at the regular season, sure, Shakopee was 7-1, Minnetonka 6-2, but did they play each other in the regular season? Yes. Who won that matchup? Minnetonka did, pretty decisively, I think. So that's going to go in favor of... They didn't play Shakopee. Go in favor of Tonka, so 6-2 skippers get it. And it ended up being... I mean, you could have gone the right choice either way. Minnetonka made it all the way to the state final. Shakopee made it to the state semifinal. And I know once Coach Betten saw who we had to play in the state bracket last year, he's like, oh, the toughest team I have to go through is Moundsview and Prior Lake. Like, he knew he was getting all the way to the state semi that year, definitely. So, as far as teams they're not going to play, so like I said, Rosemount, Shakopee matched up in the last cycle, but now that they're in the same section, they might play again. They're not going to play Blaine. That was their other non-section game, week 8. Hopkins is no longer in their sections. They can't play them. Park and Roseville, they're not going to see. Prior Lake, I don't know why I put here likely, but yeah, you're going to play Prior Lake, duh. They're in your section. It's your rivalry game. So, Moundsview Shakopee, recent playoff matchup. I like that one. STMA's already got enough other teams they got to mess with. I don't think they're going to play with Farmington, so... Shakopee, we really have to look at other teams with similar records, which is where Moundsview recent playoff matchup kind of came from. I don't think they're going to do Minnetonka Shako again. That would be a good matchup, but I don't think they're going to give them any teams they used to play with. Shakopee Forest Lake have scrimmaged a whole lot. They've been scrimmaging each other the last 2 years preseason, so I could see Shakopee versus Forest Lake. Shakopee Lakeville North, same section. Maybe Moorhead Shakopee, depends on who they want to give Moorhead. Moorhead was going to play Stillwater. I had penciled in. That's because of, and you see I've got Edina Stillwater here because you have Jet Feeney versus Nick Kinsey and Mason West. I was like, that has to happen. But obviously, as I talked about when we went over Stillwater's schedule, Nick Kinsey's not playing for them anymore. So now that matchup is kind of down in the dupes. And Edina is already in their section, so they're going to play them. So, you know, I actually could see that. Especially because they're a spread team. That'd be the only thing is that is an absolute murderous schedule for Moorhead. You have to play all these teams, your EP, Edina, Maple Grove, Tonka, STMA, Wayzata. Then your non-section games would be Lakeville South and Shakopee. I mean, that's almost as brutal as a Rosemount schedule right there. I don't think they're going to go that intense for Moorhead. But, yeah, Shakopee Moorhead would be kind of cool. And again... I like those different matchups. RPO spread offense, flex bone triple option offense, run heavy, 2 opposite philosophies. Love when those two clash. All right, last section. Here we go. We're down to the West Metro. Start with the EP Eagles. So remember how I had the theory of recent playoff matchups, otherwise it's just random? I don't know if Coach Grant has any say because... EP is always very good, and then the last cycle, they ended up playing Rochester, Mayo, and Woodbury. Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but it seems like a lot of the teams over here in the West just ended up getting easier East team matchups. Prior Lake got really easy non-section matchups. EP did. Edina, sort of. No one knew Egan was going to be as good as they were the last 2 years, but, you know, all the credit in the world to them. Stillwater, obviously, is always good. But like Minnetonka getting, well, change that please. Minnetonka getting White Bear Lake. Like I don't know who scheduled that, but okay. So yeah, I guess we'll see. It just seems like they got a lot of schedule relief in their non-section games because those sections were so brutal, which is why kind of going back to section 3 up here, the South teams, I was leaning more so on a lot of them playing teams out of the East just to get a little bit of schedule relief, or teams out of the North. I think you're going to see a lot of, for your non-section games, you're going to see a lot of the purple and the green here playing against the yellow and the blue, just to give yourself a little bit of mix up, a little more relief. You don't play teams that are as good, you go play a team that has to play a lot of good teams. You play a lot of good teams, you go play a team that doesn't have as difficult a schedule. I really see that as being a key factor here. So EP, who are they going to play? No idea. Rogers, I already have STMA penciled in. That was before we knew Rogers was going to be out there. Moorhead is also going to be in their section already. You can take them off, and I think I said EP Lakeville North week 1, make that happen. That'd be such a great game. Other recent playoff opponents, poor Farmington, you don't want to give them that. Rose, they always like to bully Rosemount. I would not be surprised if we got a Rosemount EP matchup. Egan EP. So again, all of those teams are in the South. Like, they didn't get anyone out of the South. I don't know if there's anyone left in the North that I think would be able to play with EP. That'd be funny if you gave Andover Eden Prairie week 8. And you know what? They do like to do those matchups. I'm pretty sure they like to give EP newcomers into 6A. They played both Buffalo and Mayo in the last cycle. So, yeah, we're going to pencil that in. Definitely like that. And again, we like our run-heavy matchups versus our pass-happy spread matchups. You have, and just philosophically, they're so different. EP is probably the most patient clock-milking offense in 6A. Like, I mean, they could go on one drive, and it'll last 9 or 10 minutes in one quarter. Like, that's insane. Whereas Andover is snapping the ball every 10 to 15 seconds. Just boom, boom, boom. So seeing those two, like, just different philosophies clash would be amazing. So week 8, Andover, Eden Prairie, and then week 7 or week 1, you get EP versus Lakeville North. And then section six games. And we're just going to copy that in for all these teams. Did I not? Oh, Control A, Control C. Yeah, IT guy doesn't know IT. Go figure. Pencil all that in there. So yeah, EP, I like Andover and Lakeville North. Go on to the Hornets. So I said Centennial week 8. I can take Moorhead off of there. I want them to play more of a team out of the East, but they haven't played a team out of the East in forever. Again, here's the recent playoff matchups: South, South, North. They did just play Stillwater, so they can't play Egan or Stillwater. We go up here. They were 6-2. Edina. I mean, Edina Mounds View could be a fun game week 1. They're not going to play Shakopee. They're probably not going to play North. Centennial I haven't penciled in. Who are these other teams? Edina Lakeville South, maybe. We haven't matched up in the play. I don't think we've played them since. I'm pretty sure I penciled in Lakeville South. Look, last time played. Go to the Cougars here. Oh, don't zoom in that much. Shift. We go over to Edina. So 2018. We haven't played Edina since 2018. That's when I started coaching. Since I've been coaching, we have not played Edina High School. I think the same with Minnetonka. Lakeville South hasn't played Minnetonka since 2018. That'd be pretty sweet, but yeah, I don't know about that. I do not know if the State High School League will go for that. So Edina, I honestly have no idea. They're probably just going to get matched with Centennial Week 8, and then their other non-section game, maybe Farmington, because they played in the 2023, but it was a blowout. It was like 42-0. So I really just don't know. Either way, you're going to play 6 Section 6 games, probably going to play Centennial Week 8, and then it's impossible to play Egan, Stillwater, Eastview Park, or Roseville. So, boom. Now, newcomer in the West section, Maple Grove. Okay, so their one non-section game last year was Minnetonka, but kind of like with Rosemount Shaco, now all of a sudden they find themselves in the same section for the next cycle. So it's back on the table. They're probably going to play each other. And the State High School League is going to be absolutely itching to get those two to match up in the regular season. So that's going to happen. So you just have those impossibilities. The 3 Maroon teams that are outside of Section 6. Those are the only teams off the table. You look at recent playoff matchups. I know I talked about Lakeville South. I'll add us in there. I do think that is a potential matchup. I would prefer if it's just hard to say. Kind of like I was talking about earlier. they do want to have more of 6-3 versus 5-4. I could see that because right now I'm talking about a lot of 3-6 crossover matchups, which, you get good teams on good teams. But then at that point, it basically becomes kind of the old gold versus maroon that we used to have. And I don't think any of the 6A coaches like that at all. So we'll see what they decide to do there. But Lakeville South, I think, is a possibility. Eastridge, they played in 2022. That's another matchup we could see. Forest Lake matched up with them in 2022. Woodbury, I don't think they're going to give them Woodbury. I don't think they're going to play any teams out of the north. Rogers and Andover, I already assigned games to. Maybe you get Andover, Maple Grove. Actually, yeah, we'll pencil them in there too. That's another thing. Andover could play Maple Grove. When you're playing all these spread teams, you want another run-heavy team week 8. Andover might get Maple Grove or a EP, or even an Edina. I could see any of that. EP, Edina, Maple Grove. I think those 3 are all on the table for Andover. Let in for Edina. Now, not as much Edina because they're more of a spread, but EP, Maple Grove, definitely. Come down here, we'll add in Andover. And again, teams of different styles. Run heavy, power I formation versus a pistol spread, pass happy offense. That's snapping the ball every 10 to 15 seconds. Love that matchup. We're going to add Andover there. So yeah, Maple Grove, you're going to play those 6 teams. Likely a Lakeville South and an Andover as your 2 non-section teams. Maybe you'll get lucky enough to play Hopkins. Who knows? Teams out of the East. Forest Lake, maybe Eastridge, maybe Mounds View, but not likely. If it was, it'd be like just a random choice as opposed to recent playoff matchups. All right, let's get to the skippers next. Minnetonka. So you're going to play 6 section games, whether that be Hopkins and any mix of 6 out of those ones. See, the only games they're not guaranteed to play are White Bear Lake and then the other Maroon team. Like I said, they're 2 non-section games where obviously Maple Grove, back on the table as we just discussed, and White Bear Lake, which I'm sure White Bear Lake is probably happy about. They don't want to see Minnetonka again. What do I have? There we go. I don't know why that's floating better. Minnetonka, I think I penciled Lakeville North in because Minnetonka, there's not a lot of teams they've played in the playoffs that they haven't already played or that aren't on here. I really do like a Lakeville North matchup week 1. I know they've scrimmaged each other, kind of like Forest Lake and Shakopee have the last few years, so I do really like a Minnetonka versus Lakeville North matchup. Eastridge is another one. I don't know if a 5-3 Eastridge is enough to justify playing a 6-2 state runner-up Minnetonka, but I could see that. I don't think I had any openings left up in the north, but I could see some of these north teams, like maybe Anoka getting matched up with a Minnetonka, maybe, but they already played a team out of the west. Who didn't play west? Andover. Andover. Found another one for you. Just all the run-heavy big teams are just getting lumped into Andover. Rogers could play one of them, but like I said, I'm penciling in Rogers STMA. We want to renew that rivalry, and I would just absolutely love that. Plus, if STMA at 3-5 now has to play all of these other teams that they did not want to play, you can give them a break by letting them play Rogers. Renew that rivalry. Osceola's going to pencil in Egan. Yeah, these 3 played South teams. I don't think Minnetonka's going to get Coon Rapids, even if that is relief. That'd be wild. Could you imagine if you are Coach Vasquez, first year head coach, first time head coaching at Coon Rapids, your team gets asked to stay in 6A so that Apple Valley doesn't have to play in 6A, and week 8 you get matched up against Minnetonka. That would be absolutely wild. I would not want to be Coach Vasquez when schedules drop on the 14th if that's the case. But yeah, so Minnetonka, big question mark there. That one's tough. But you do know you're going to get 6 games within your section. You're probably not going to see Prior Lake or Shako just because you played them last year. And if they are going to do cross-section games, I don't think they're going to do cross-section games against teams that were in your section last cycle. So that's the only thing they got going for. Moorhead, we talked about. Lakeville South, week 1, make it happen. I haven't really mentioned them with any other teams. Moorhead could play so many of these other teams to be great matchups. Like I said, originally I had penciled in Moorhead's 2 non-section games. If they were in the north, it was either going to be Edina or Stillwater. But now that Moorhead's in the same section as Edina, we're going to get Mason West versus Jet Feeney, which, I mean, that's fantastic. Whatever week that game is, it's going to be 2 through 6. We're stopping everything. That's going to be a Thursday game. Every other game is going to be on Friday. Actually, no. Every game will be on Thursday that week. That game will be on Friday, and the whole state of Minnesota is going to watch that. An absolutely killer matchup. But then who does that leave them to play non-conference? Because Edina's now in your section, and Stillwater, like I said earlier, Nick Kinsey's gone. So both of their non-section games I had predicted are just completely out the door. The Lakeville South was one I mentioned. Shakopee is another one, just to give them some run-heavy teams. Already playing a lot of run-heavy teams. So, if you don't have any recent playoff opponents, but you want to give them good... Do I really want to pencil in Eastridge for another team? I don't know. We'll keep Stillwater on the board. Even though they don't have Nick Kinsey anymore, I still like that matchup of Stillwater versus Moorhead. And then, you know what? If they get Stillwater and Lakeville South as their two, you have the furthest northwest team playing the furthest east team and the furthest south team. So I do like that. We'll pencil those two in for Moorhead. So STMA I talked about. We're locking them in for Rogers week 8. Prior Lake I put on there because STMA was in the north last cycle. I do like that. And I'll say Lakeville South is another one. The only thing kind of holding me back from Lakeville South is that prior to last season when we went 5-3, I mean, Lakeville South has barely lost any games from like 2019 to 2023. Whereas STMA has kind of been down the last 2 years. I think they were 4-4 in 2023. They're 3-5 last year. But not exactly the best that STMA has been, especially if you compare that to when they made the state semis in 2021. Yeah, STMA just has not been the same. It seems like ever since they've switched to a pistol offense from their traditional like heavy I-22 unbalanced stuff, it just it hasn't quite been the same. It hasn't translated. And then like we talked about earlier, when they switched from the 3-4 to or 4-3 to a 3-4 last season, their defense regressed a little bit, and that's to be expected. When you change your defensive scheme, your defense is going to regress a little bit. That's just the way we know that at Lakeville South. Look at what we did last year. We switched, we regressed a little bit. It's because the kids that you've had play in your system all the way through from youth up to their senior year, now you're telling them to do something different. It's always going to be a tough transition. Yeah, I like STMA playing Lakeville South, and I like Moorhead playing Lakeville South. So bring it on. We'll take Moorhead and STMA, and then we'll take 6 teams in that section. Pencil it in. I love it. And then Wyzetta. So week 8, they played Anoka. Week 1, they played Lakeville South. Had that big upset over us week 1. They were very well prepared. I got to give Wyzetta some props here, man. They absolutely dominated time of possession. Their RPO calls were all on point. Icing us was on point. They were really prepared week 1, and we just were not ready. You could tell that they even scouted like, oh, when Lakeville South goes into their I formation in 3rd and long, they like to do toss. They were ready for it, and that was a big stop on 4th down. So, yeah, no, they definitely knew what was coming when we switched things up. So definitely give props to Coach Brown and the staff over at Wyzetta. They brought the sauce, and they definitely deserve to win Week 9, though, playoffs. We were a little bit smarter. We came ready to go. We knew what they were going to do. I had 8 weeks of film to go over and study. So, yeah, we got back at them a little bit. But that's a fun little rivalry, Lakeville South Wyzetta. Coach Brown does a really good job over there. So like I said, they're not going to play Anoka or Lakeville South. 3 Maroon teams outside their section are also off the board, so they're not going to see them. If you look at other recent playoff matchups, Lakeville South's impossible, so I didn't include them. I'm taking STMA off because STMA's in their section now. That's now a section game. And they haven't played anyone out of the East in the while. You've got recent playoff games versus Forest Lake and Stillwater. Let's make that alphabetical order. Clean that up a little bit. So I definitely think Forest Lake and Stillwater are likely to play Wyzetta, especially Forest Lake. That was a playoff matchup a few years ago. I could easily see Forest Lake, Wyzetta being either week 8 or week 1, depending on who else Forest Lake gets. So yeah, those are my way too early schedule predictions. You can feel free to go back in the video. Maybe I'll timestamp them. That's a long video to go through, but we will see. So now, we're all done with that. Next, we're going to get into Shakopee versus Hopkins. Ooh, I'm so ready for this. So, kind of like I was touching on earlier with the schedules, I like when you have teams that have very different styles play against each other. Shakopee, as I've said numerous times, flex bone, 30 personnel, 3 running backs, generally no tight ends, sometimes 31 with 1 tight end. Not a lot of passing. They're probably going to run the ball 70 times a game, pass maybe 3 or 4 times. And it's all about how they set up their offense. You know what? Just to have fun here, I'm going to open up a little practice script. Yeah, we're just gonna create a new one under test, sure, and we'll call this test. Boom. Perfect. So if I ever want to draw anything up, so we'll go over Shakopee's offense. So we'll call it middle hash, and then 30, we'll call it double slot. Let me see if it auto-populates. Should remember. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There we go. Perfect. So as you see, H and Z, if you're more of like a spread offense, I just use these letters to keep it simple for everyone, because with Lakeville South, you might play a spread team, you might play a wing T team, you might play a flexbone team. And for our scout team, it's easier for me to just keep those 5 letters the same with these 5 colors that Huddle allows me to do. We just keep it at that. Even if they, like, for example, that's probably not R. Shakopee might call that a fullback or the A back. And then these guys probably aren't called H and Z. They're likely called, I mean, it could be a number. It could be 3 because he's on the left. It could be the B back because he's the B back. That's the A. Or you could call him a slot back. There's just many different ways to name that. So it really all depends. I don't know what Shakopee's naming convention is. I've never coached for them, so I couldn't tell you. But they're a triple option team. This is what they like to do. Whereas Hopkins, we go to 11 tray open. See if it'll auto-populate for me. There we are. You see, a lot more wide receivers. You have a slot receiver now. H is now a receiver. Y is a true tight end, not a wideout. R is an actual running back, not a fullback. And all these letters make sense. If you played for Jefferson, you probably recognize some of this. Very similar traditional spread offense. Shotgun, obviously, whereas if we go back one, Shakapoop is under center. So nice little mix up there, and we'll see these two teams go after it. As you can see, one is a little bit more set up to run, other one's a little bit more set up to pass. But red teams still like to run the ball. It's like one of the biggest misconceptions in 6A. We're like, oh, like take Blaine, for example. Blaine does a ton of 10 and 11 personnel, spread offense, and they run the ball just as much as anybody else. They're doing QB lead, they're doing GH counter, they're doing stretch, they do inside zone. And they just run up and down the field. Like, you have Sam Shaughnessy at a quarterback these last 2 years. He's running all over the place, and he can throw the ball too. That's kind of their game plan. They just, and a lot of 6A teams do that. They run all over you to set up the deep pass. All right, so let's get into it. So some of the Shakopee stuff is labeled because I've gone through a lot of the Shakopee's offense, and I do need to clean up some of the play names. Some of them I've incorrectly labeled inside or outside veer. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into it. Let's see. So just for everyone that's not as familiar, Shakopee is over here in the red. Hopkins is in the blue and white. Kickoff. See what happens. Nice high kick. Hopkins. Ooh, okay. So if you're going to be a kick returner, step number 1, you have to secure the ball. If it's going to drop like that, oh boy. Please tell me. No, wait, dude. Oh boy. Ooh, that is, and remember, this is week 1, so this is the first play of the season for Hopkins. Very first play of the game, you fumble the opening kickoff, and Shako recovers. Oh boy. Oh yeah, Shako's coaches are fired up. I don't know where Coach Benton is down here, but I'm sure he's hyped. Oh, there he is. What in the world? There we go. All right, so first play, 2 tight double wing. We're going to take a look. We'll fast forward a little bit here. I want to see how the offense and defenses line up. So, we can tell just by looking at this, it looks like Hopkins is playing a 4-4 defense. You have your 4 down linemen right there. You have 4 backers stacked up there. And you have 3 DBs, 2 cornerbacks, and 1 safety. Not as big a fan of running 4-4 defense into a triple option. I prefer a 3-4, but we'll get into that a little bit more as we talk about assignments. And then on the other end, you have Shakopee. They're in their flex bone, kind of that formation we drew up earlier. So if we go back over here, the only difference, though, is that they're playing double tight. So move tight end, move tight end. Instead of wide receivers, they become tight ends. But you see, that's literally all they do. Take him, move him in. Take him, move him in. Playbook stays the same. Plays stay the same. They're just tightening it up. And what does Shakopee like to, where do they like to run when they're tight like that? They're not going to run inside when they're tight. They're going to run outside. And you can see that because, look at this. When you have all 8 guys in the box here, all tight, well, I mean, look at this. This is an entire 1/3 of the field right here, and they're over on this hash. Hopkins has 1 defender, and he's on the hash right there. That means from there to there, there's nobody out there. So, I wonder if Shakopee is going to toss. I think they end up tossing right, because I labeled toss right, but, I mean, they could have gone either way. Yep, there's classic Shakopee toss. So another thing they like to do, whenever they do toss, they fake the fullback going the other way. It's a good way for option teams to gauge which of these guys are following the fullback. And you can actually see, watch the Hopkins deep safety here. He backpedals, but then he sees the toss, and he's actually doing a great job coming and filling. This, I'd like to see that corner come up a little bit faster once he sees the toss, especially because he doesn't have anyone out there. So you have to be a force player. He comes in and fills. If let me redraw that a little bit. He comes up. He controls the edge. He comes up. He fills out there. That forces the toss man. If you can't get outside the corner, you bounce back. You run to the safety. You bounce back after that. All those Royals are chasing you down to shut down the play. But instead, Hopkins kind of sits and waits for him to come up to them. That's a great block. Oh, also, if you want to see a nutty block, watch me. I think that's Trey Boyd right there, the right tackle. I used to say this at Jefferson. Receiver blocking makes big plays. I should have changed it because we had receivers. We were spread offense, a lot of 10 personnel. Now that we're at Lakeville South, we don't have receivers. Downfield blocking makes big plays, and that reigns true for Shakopee. So watch Mr. Boyd up here. Goes up. Boom. That is a D1 offensive tackle going to Northwestern this coming year. And then once he's done, knocks the safety to the ground. What does he do after that? Adds some maple syrup, and boom. Walks in right behind him. You got another pancake there. I did credit to Shakopee. Now, this one probably should have been a penalty up here now that we're watching it. The Hopkins corner is trying to fight inside. He's being held, not called. And then after that, he's look at him. He's tackling him. So I don't think they're going to call that. But what they should have, well, I don't know. It's hard to say. As coaches, we generally don't really talk about penalties. We always say control the controllables. We leave the officiating up to the officials. So, yeah, I'd like to see that Hopkins kid probably do a little bit better to try and fight off that. Give him a rip move. Get out of that hold. But that's first play of the game. And you can see Shakopee is really smart. They bring the offense in tight. Hopkins brings their defense in tight. You only have 1 guy out there to stop it. Get your slot back out there to block him. Slot back blocks him. As you see, they don't need to block all these guys up front. They take a lot of reach steps, the tackle steps through. The guard in the center just kind of block bodies to the play side just to trip them up just enough so that the toss gets outside of them. And then you've got a slot back taking on your corner, which I imagine the slot back should win that. Then you have your enormous right tackle bearing down on a lone free safety. And look at this. They have all these blockers downfield. You're not worried about any of those guys in the wash. Like, it's just a very well drawn up rocket toss for Shakopee, and then they execute. They're being physical. They're throwing guys around. Good on Shako for scoring. PAT. They got it. All right, next up. This is S. It's not an actual kick. Here's the kick return. Okay, so, and just like that, there's only 10 seconds off the clock, and we're already up 7-0. Now let's get a look at Hopkins' offense. So that's 2 kickoffs in a row. If you make an error once, it's just an error. If an error repeats itself, it becomes a mistake, and then you got problems. And that's problems. That should have been corrected after the first kickoff. All right, so hey, give Shako's kickoff credit. They're flying to the ball. You got 11 guys there. So now let's look at defense and Shako defense and Hopkins off. So, okay. Freeze right there. So as we go back to my other thing really fast with the play, exactly how Hopkins is lined up. Now, Shakopee, interestingly enough, you will not know what their base defense is watching this because they're not in their base defense. If we speed up a little bit, so you have 3 down linemen right there, 3 down linemen, but then what's all this back here? Where it gets interesting. So you have backer, 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 then what's all this? You have safety, or a corner over here, so 3rd level corner, corner, safety, safety, safety. They're in their nickel package right now, which kind of, and this is what 11 personnel is meant to do. It's why so many, especially in the NFL and college, 11 personnel is like the meta. So when you're a defense, do you play your base 3-4? Because if you do, you have an outside backer matched up on a slot receiver without a DB. Well, you don't want that mismatch. But if you go into a nickel package, you take one of your or one of your inside backers out, so you're missing somebody here. They still have a tight end. Now they have 6 men in the box, plus a running back and a quarterback against only your 6 defenders, and you're hoping your safeties fill. But again, safeties are at 10 yards depth. If they do fill, you're not getting them until like 5 or 6 yards downfield. So that's the pickle that 11 personnel puts your defense into. Do you go nickel, or do you go into your base defense? Which would you rather give up? And it looks like Shakopee is defending the pass a little bit more, which I agree with. Shakopee's got very physical linemen, and they're probably picturing that their front 6 can take on Hopkins. Another factor to consider, Hopkins linemen, their O&D line, play both ways. Shakopee's do not. These guys here are fresh. These guys are not fresh. So I think it's a smart choice for Shakopee to do that. Now, they're lined up in a base. Oh, see, where are we going? See how he's creeping in? He's coming down. You're going to have a blitz here. He might blitz outside. Shakopee does like to do a little blitz where they bring both backers on the edge, an inside backer and the outside backer. Safety will move down to fill there. Now, okay. If I coached you at Jefferson, especially 2022, you should know anytime you see a sidecar shotgun offense like this, 11 personnel, just read where the tight end and the running back are. So running back is on this side of the quarterback, we'll say of the center. So if you draw your line right there from the center, Y is on one side, R is on the other. What is it going to be? It's probably going to be inside zone this way. We'll see if that happens. I probably drew that line. That was more outside zone. It's probably going to be inside zone right through there because they're on opposite sides. How much you want to bet? So jet. I don't think they're going to give them the jet sweep because the tight end's on this side. It's got to be inside zone, right? It's inside zone. Look at that. And they actually opened up a nice hole. Look at Hopkins go. I'd like to see the tight end probably step inside here instead of see how he's stepping side. I probably would like to see him do a little more like that action, get around and kind of hook him. But he lets him run upfield. He lets him tackle himself. And then look, that is a nice running lane right there. Wide receiver, got to do a little bit better job blocking. Good job getting next level. Backside receiver, need a little more effort. Get up there and go block a safety so that he can't fill and make a tackle. Tight end, like I said, tight end should probably go downfield. O-line does a pretty solid job. I mean, that's a good design by Hopkins. The only thing that I'm not falling for is right away, even with that motion, we knew it wasn't a jet sweep. Why? Because when you're an 11 personnel team and you want to run jet sweep, you have to have your tight end and running back on the same side. And as we see, they're on different sides. So that jet sweep cannot happen like that because they're on opposite sides. You're missing out on a lead blocker. And if you wanted to do that better, so put running back there, just take the Y, move him over to that side, put him off. There you go. Now you can run jet sweep, running back leads, or you can do counter back the other way. It's how all 11 personnel 5A teams run. Yeah, they do open up a nice hole. Would love to see a little bit better receiver blocking downfield, but all in all, that's not too shabby. All right, let's see what they're in now. They in trips. Okay, so now they're in twins. You have 2 receivers this side. Tight end is over here, but guard tackle. Now instead of 3x1, it's a 2x2 look. Here's the center. Which side's the running back on? So running back and tight end are on the same side, right? That means it's either going to be counter back that way, or they actually are going to do a jet sweep this way. Let's see which one it is. I'm assuming, unless they're going to pass. They're in second and long. This should be a jet sweep, right? Oh! And look at that. Jet sweep. And all you have to do is look at that alignment of running back and the tight end. It gives it away. And you know what? You can almost tell that Shakopee's expecting it because look, he's up playing tight. He's up playing tight. Watch how the safeties respond. See that? As soon as he comes in motion, shift, shift. They're expecting it. And if you do run counter to the backside, that outside backer's uncovered. You would have to pull the guard around to get him. Tight end, you don't have to worry about him in the wash. You can have quarterback do like a GH counter read on him. Bring him back across. Guard kicks out outside back. Or here we go. Draw better. Guard can kick out that outside backer coming off the edge because they're pinching the end inside. He comes upfield, hits him. He goes there. Safeties already are going over with the motion. And then running back goes back that way. And boom. There you go, Hopkins. Free offense. Gold star. Throw counter into your playbook. And, going back to first down, your offensive plays are supposed to set each other up, right? We knew this was not going to be a jet sweep, kind of like I was talking about earlier, because running back and tight end are on opposite sides of the center. It's just, he's not set up to lead block for the jet sweep. There's no point in doing the jet motion fake. You know he's not getting the ball. You know it's going to be inside zone that way based on their alignment. Whereas here, it's on the table. And in order to keep teams honest, you have to have a counter to the backside. You always run opposite of the motion. Yeah, it would have been really smart here if they did that fake jet. He can still spin around the same way, have him spin, and then right here, instead of having him go this way, you have running back 2 counter steps, and then quarterback keeps turning, does a little handoff here after doing a fake pitch underneath. That gives guard time to pull around. That gives tight end time to get up there. Running back falls between them. And then boom. And then receiver, go block the corner. Receiver blocking makes big plays. If that receiver blocks the corner on counter there, that's a touchdown for Hopkins. 100% that is. But, look at that shock. And remember that safety I was talking about earlier for Shakopee? How they cheated over with the motion? Watch safety right here. Let's see what he does. Oh. 3 blockers missed him. That one just got a tiny piece of him, but he fought off of it. Came in and laid the wood. That was a safety. He was all the way back here. Came and made a tackle for loss. That is incredible filling on a jet sweep. Gold star, Shakopee safety. That's fantastic. That wasn't Coach Betton's son, was it? No, I think that's Coach Betton's son over there. All right, so I think there was a penalty on this, though, because Hopkins got the penalty at. Someone threw a flag somewhere in here. Oh, yeah. Some extracurriculars going on over here. Hopkins knocked a guy over. And they came and they started shoving him, and they threw the penalty on Shakopee. So, things to see on film. Interesting. All right, so now instead of 11 personnel, we're in 10 because we have 4 wideouts. There's 1 running back, 0 tight ends, 10 personnel. First and 10. I'm just going to assume, because they're in 10 personnel, Shakopee is still in their nickel package. Now it makes more sense to be in a nickel package because you don't have a tight end to worry about in the run game. Hopkins just had 2 runs in a row. Fair to assume Hopkins is going to pass here. What are we thinking? Will Hopkins pass? Also, it's only the 3rd play of the game. I got to give Shakopee some credit here. So I don't know if anyone's noticed. Their D-line has moved over. Instead of playing their usual 4-0-4, they've actually shifted a shade this way. They have a 3 because he's lined up on the guard. He's in a shade on the strong side of the center. He's in a 5 technique on the edge out here. And the reason they're doing that is because they noted, and if you've ever seen Kirby Smart talk about high gear versus low gear run defenders, this is where Shakopee's getting this from. The high gear defenders are always the immediate run threat because they're opposite of the sidecar running back. So when you're in shotgun, running back's opposite of you, you know the run threat is coming at you. So you got to be high gear, you got to go attack the run. The backside, if the running back is on your side, you are low gear. You're kind of sitting here in the wash, making sure you're holding the quarterback accountable on the zone read, and then scraping down the line once you know that the running back has the handoff and you're kind of a fill player. And I mean, this is only the 3rd play of the game, and Shakopee has already picked up on what Hopkins is doing if they didn't watch film and plan this ahead of time. But I didn't see them do that the first 2 plays. It looks like they're playing 4-0-4 and 4-0-4. So, massive credit 3rd play of the game. They already adjusted and they're right on top of it. Huge credit. So let's see if Hopkins actually passes here. Yep, we saw that annotation. It was a run play. I am shocked. Now, so remember what I said about high gear, low gear? That defensive end is not playing low gear. He's playing high gear. I did not like the quarterback's read here. So if you're doing an inside zone read, which you can tell it's inside zone, step down, step, they're all zone blocking. And again, if it is a run play, it's too obvious. Okay, bubble not as good. He holds up the safety. Bubble up here was good. Safety went that way. They're doing a little bit better, and they know that they're in a nickel package, but this I'd probably say is on the quarterback. What I'd like to see is the fake handoff here. Who else is out here? Quarterback can go and run, but you have an outside backer there waiting for him. I would say, and he can do that because he's got safety help over the top, so he's not as worried about the bubble. So, yeah, Hopkins probably called this before they knew what Shakopee was really going to do on defense against this, because you can see neither outside backer went with the bubble. Safeties took the bubble. So yeah, if you're going to run the ball, I would not do it out of 10 personnel, because Shakopee was not fooled by that at all. Still got some good yards, though. Okay, second and medium. And so far, you're still in 10 personnel. You're in trips. Okay, so which side's the running back on? He's over here. Notice Shakopee is over this way. You can see he's not out from the tackle. He's out further. Or it might be. He's not on the guard. He's out here on the tackle. That might be 404, actually. He's up on the line. They're shifted over. You see they have two safeties over there. He's going to blitz because he doesn't need to do anything on the edge now. Inside backers cheated over there. He's probably just going to hang out on the backside if he doesn't blitz. These two will blitz over here. And again, side of the running back gives it away. This almost to me looks like they're about to run like a traditional flood concept over here. Roll out with the halfback leading, and then QB comes behind him like that. And Shakopee, I think, is expecting that because, look, they got two blitzers loaded up to intercept that. So let's see if it plays out that way. Dude, well, I don't think it was a full-on flood. I think it's more of a, we used to call this sticks at Jefferson, when you have a fade, an out, and an out. Except I don't know if these two are outs or if they're meant to be different levels, but hey, that was like spot on, man. That's basically flood right there. Oh, and like I said, Shakopee knew it was coming. We were able to see it was coming based on the alignment of the running back. And did they blitz those two backers that I said they were going to blitz? Did these two blitz? Those two blitzed. Dude. And again, quarterback tries to roll out, but he rolls out right into the blitzer. So, huge credit to Shakopee. They knew that was coming. They were ready for it. Big play. That's a big loss. All right. Now it's 3rd and 20, whatever. 3rd and less than 20. 3rd and 19. Hopkins has to pass here. I mean, this is a passing down. Notice they shifted back to 11 personnel. They might just try and run the ball because they know they're not going to get a first down. I don't think they're going to try and go deep. Take note, running back that side, tight ends over there. Draw a line from the center to quarterback. If it is a run play, it's going to be zoned that way. If they do jet that way, it's not going to get there. They can't because the tight end's on the wrong side for there to be a jet handoff. So if it's a motion from him, it'll be fake. And it's just inside zone. There you go. I forgot to look at Shakopee's D-line. Where they shifted over, it looks like they're just playing 4-0-4. Yeah, it's inside zone. And Shakopee just does a great job playing it. Yeah, you know what? Now that I'm looking at this with Hopkins, if Shakopee is aware that, and this is the same with almost like any sidecar shotgun offense, which is why I'm so against running it. If like I have not watched any Hopkins film, right? And I have been able to tell you what plays they're running just based on the alignment of those two. When I was coaching at Jefferson, still 9th grade at 2022, Apple Valley actually had accused us of stealing their playbook. But because we were calling out everything they did. All we knew was that. That's all we did, and we predicted every play they were going to run based on that. And it's super easy for our kids to understand defensively. If tight end and running back are on the same side, it's going to be zone away from them. If they're on the same side, it's going to be counter coming back the other way. Or jet sweep. So you know their playbook doing that. And if they're ever aligned not like that, then you don't have to fall for their fakes. Like, I'm pretty sure want to say it was Waconia week 4 or week 5 we had that. They had a running back this side, tight end this side. They brought a slot receiver in motion. Or no, yeah, it was like, we'll do it backwards. They brought this receiver in motion, and it was the second play of the game. First play, they ran verts because they were expecting us to be cover 3. They always do that first play of the game. We had that called out. But I'm like, don't fall for the jet sweep. It's coming back this way. And sure enough, he did a fake jet handoff, but there's no tight end to lead block. And then they ran inside zone back the other way, and we stopped it for a 2-yard loss because we knew it was coming. So how would I fix that? Instead of running back being over there, pistol him. And then literally all you have to do is change the quarterback steps. If you want the quarterback to do inside zone when he's behind, his 2 feet are like this. You want inside zone right. Play side foot goes backwards. That way he's opening up into the middle. And if you want to run outside zone, backside foot pivots out. That way the handoff is happening out here for outside zone. Easy way to make Hopkins' offense way more disguised. And I think they'd have a lot more success with that. Because then, like I said, you wouldn't be able to tell what play they're running pre-snap. Sure, you may not be able to sell. And then you can also do better jet sweep counters. Suppose that you have running back here, tight end here, and we'll say Z, the slot receiver, isn't up here. Say he's down here. Then when you're in pistol, you can still do a fake jet handoff. You can actually have the running back lead that way, take 2 steps there, and then come back that way. You can have guard pull out, tight end come, go up, and then you just have down block, center, down blocks to cover. Tackled as a fire block right there. And there you go. Boom. Then running back, follow that up the hole. You get your receiver that's out there to block still. And then you get your running back matched up on a safety out there. Assuming that that inside backer's not caught in the wash, you might be able to get your tight end up to the safety. Way better. Just saying. There's some things that Hopkins could do here to make their offense a little bit more potent. So obviously they didn't get the first down. They got some good yards though. Give them some credit. 3rd and a mile. Punting. Oh, I like that. Shift on the punt. Keep Shakopee honest. Kind of funny. Shakopee's punt return kind of looks like Hopkins D. Shako gets the ball back. Fair catch. The first game you get a little rusty, but way to get on the ball. Okay, so I called this play inside veer for Shako. Let's see if it is. So going back, now they're in their traditional 30 double slot. So we go back here, back to Shako. All they're doing, instead of tight ends, they have wide receivers, 30 personnel. And that's just their base offense. This is bread and butter Shakopee right now. So looking, and like I said, Hopkins is still in their 4-4 look. The way you defend an option team is not the same way you defend like any other offense in football. And we're going to see that right here because option teams intentionally leave a defender unblocked because they want to read that defender. You are the read key or handoff key, depending on what their terminology is. Then there's usually another defender left unblocked called the pitch key. And boom, just like that. There's 2 defenders by design we don't need to block because we are forcing them to make a decision. And we want them to always make the wrong decision. So if it's inside veer, it says left, so it should be coming this way. I imagine we should get orbit motion here, if I remember correctly, and then we're going to do a dive handoff. So let's see how it plays out. Boom. So it is inside veer. I labeled this one correctly. Watch the defensive lineman right here. Not the outside backer, the defensive lineman. Shakopee's running inside veer left. You'll notice, wow. That defensive lineman didn't get touched. He must be the best player in the world. Nobody touched him. Well, again, inside veer by design, not blocked, not blocked. Where's Shakopee's line? They're building a wall right here. See how they're just like walling off guys right here? Where do you think the fullback's going to go? Right there. If you get him to block there. The one nice thing about running the 4-4 is that the slot back for Shakopee. Oh, no, never mind. He got a clean release. He can get up to the safety. So now you have there. Now you have there. You have the dive right there. I don't think this one went for a touchdown, but so now we got to talk about the rules of how to defend Shakopee. Because Hopkins, when you see this, the outside backer does a decent job waiting for the quarterback. But let me delete all this junk. But what I'd like to see is right here, the D-line, you should not be worried about the quarterback. If you have a defender assigned to the quarterback, your job is to hit the fullback. Doesn't matter if he has the ball or not. You take that fullback to the ground. Make him regret either taking a handoff or faking the handoff. That is your rule. And then if the quarterback keeps it, well, that's okay. Your buddy out here takes the quarterback. Well, then what if the quarterback pitches to the pitch man? Well, free safety comes, corner comes. And kind of like we talked about on the toss, rocket toss, Shakopee ran first play of the game. If they're going to be going outside, all you want to do is control the edge here. Control the edge. Force that guy to cut back inside because guess what? You have your entire defense here moving in, and then boom. You make the tackle right there, or if he just keeps going, he goes out of bounds. Simple as that. But that's how Shakopee gets to you. If you don't give your kids that rules and rep the absolute living crap out of them, then you're going to make mistakes. I got to refresh the page. So this happened. This is a glitch with Huddle's practice script. So now we'll actually label the defense. So we'll do a 3-4 defense. So you have nose, end, and open side is here. Quarterback is right-handed. So we'll say that's a Mike. That's a Will. We'll say Sam, and then we'll do a Buck. We'll give a 5-2 look, and then you have your free safety. Just call them F. Strong safety. A lot of teams like to use $. Corner and corner. So your base 3-4 defense. So if I wanted to, I would just take out the strong safety here and put them on the line somewhere. If I want to do Hopkins, they're doing. But that's how you defend it. So say Shakopee is going to run inside veer. Shakopee, I should say. Then who is your C gap defender? Say we're doing what Hopkins is. Say you have 5 techniques. So you want to get a double team we'll say inside veer left, right? So we want to double team at the point of attack on the first person inside the B gap. So B gap is here. We don't have anybody in there. We want to run the ball at the B gap. You have a C gap, you have a D gap, and you have a nose in the A. So we're going to get a nice double team here, attacking the nose guard. And you're going to double him up to the Mike. He can help scoop block the nose up to the Mike. They could even get up to safety. Then he just needs to scoop block the backside, make sure that he doesn't get a tackle. And then here, we don't want to block him. Remember, I'm going to draw some circles here. So your end, we'll color him orange, actually. That orange, that is your read key if you're Shakopee. Then out here, who did I say this was? Buck, outside backer. That is your pitch key. We are not going to block either of those two teams. This is why Shakopee's offense is so potent. He goes down, and you get your starting left tackle just devastating a linebacker. Great matchup right there. And like I said, we're not going to block these two. So what does this guy do? Depends on what blocking scheme they call. If they call an arc block, then it depends on where this guy is aligned. If he's aligned far outside, like he is here, you do what's called bib, B-I-B, back inside backer, and you go get safety. Say your pitch key is playing a little bit more tight in there, then you would do a bob, back outside backer, and go out there and get the free safety. Either way, in a regular arc block, the slot back is trying to get to the free safety. Now, what Shakopee likes to do, and I don't know if they did it on the last play, I think they just called a regular arc block. Yeah, they did. Yep. Another thing they like to do is what's called switch block with these two guys. So, all they're doing is switching guys. You have your wideout, go and get that safety, and now we are arcing outside, and we'll see this later in the film, but he goes and gets the corner like that. And so, now, remember, we're not blocking either of these two guys. He can come in motion. We'll let him go up and block the backside safety so we can't pursue. And then here's our first read here, run right here. So, aiming point, I learned this from watching some Centennial videos. Whenever you're running inside veer, the fullback, who we'll change him back to R. Going to be R, running back, fullback. His aiming point is always the outside hip of the play side guard. So there's your left guard, that's play side. His aiming point is right off his butt, and that's where he wants to dive with the football, right there. The quarterback is doing the handoff right here, and he's reading. Remember, who's our read key? The C-gap defender. First level C-gap defender is right there. That would be the end. He's watching that C-gap. So we go back to the example from Hopkins here. What does the C-gap defender do? He runs upfield. So if C-gap defender here runs up the field and goes wild, fullback's going to get the ball 100% of the time. Or if he stays there, fullback gets the ball 100% of the time. And as you see, everyone's blocked. We're getting the wash. He's not going to get there. Those two are never going to chase him down. You have a switch or an arc on the outside, so they're taken care of. And obviously, he's not going to get there because his job is the quarterback. Now, next, suppose that the end does what he's supposed to and crashes down hard off the tackle's butt and tackles the fullback. Well, now, quarterback reads that. His job is now to go out here, right? Go off the edge of the tackle. Who's waiting for him? Outside linebacker. So, if outside linebacker does his job and attacks the quarterback, that forces the quarterback to then pitch the ball. And then out here, he would pitch the ball right about there as close as he can to the outside backer. And then that's when Shakopee gets the pitch. And this is what they really want. When a triple option offense gets to their pitch read, that's when you get big plays in the outside. Because who stops the pitch? So you have your front five here that are supposed to take the dive. Outside backers are supposed to take the quarterback. That leaves the defensive backs to take the pitch man. And suppose you have two on this side, unless you want the strong safety to roll with the motion, but counter option exists to counter that, funny enough. They're both being blocked. You have a switch blocks, they're being accounted for, so they have to fight off their blocks to go get the pitch man. And that's why this offense is so potent. If you don't stick with those rules of you two have to fight off blocks to get the pitch man, you always get quarterback, you five always get dive. If you just stick to those rules, Shakopee can't gain any yards. Like, sure, they have plays they set up off of it, but if you stay sound to those rules, you're taking away inside veer, outside veer, and midline. They're bread and butter plays. When you take away a team's bread and butter, you start to panic a little bit. I don't know about you, but if Shakopee starts throwing the ball downfield to play catch up, you're going to win that game most likely. Because that's not how Shakopee wants to play. But that's essentially all Shakopee's doing on their inside veer, and they're going to run that play a whole lot. So let's see what happens. As we saw, C-gap defender, who, going back here, that's him. Instead of going inside, he runs upfield. Quarterback sees that, and it is a dive. That's a good read. Who got off there? Someone was able to make the tackle. He's just chased down from behind. So, and that's to be expected. It's a 4-4, a little bit harder to block, and I like the way that they're playing, jamming guys up front to get after them. Then you can't really build. See how Shakopee's like building a wall right there? That's what the veer is. You're just getting guys to crash down hard to build that wall, and then fullback runs underneath them. And if you get all your blocks off successfully, you're going to get a big play. Let's see what they do next. That's a great run. So they're coming out in double slot again. Okay, they just got burned inside. They're expecting them to go back inside. So Shakopee goes outside. They should rocket toss out here. Because again, this is an entire 1/3 of the field. There are 0 players out there. That is a lot of space to work with. I'm Shako. I'm thinking of that. That looks pretty appetizing, man. That's like a Wingstop 10-piece boneless right there. Gotta get after that. Will they toss left? I think it says toss right at the top. No, they do toss left. See? And hey, give outside backer of Hopkins fantastic credit here. That's a great play. Not liking what the safety's doing, though. You're playing a run-heavy team, and the first thing he does, first of all, you're playing at 12 yards off instead of 10. Against a run-heavy team, I probably would want to see 10. And then from there, we start backpedaling here. Remember, 10 yards right there. So now 15 yards off the line of scrimmage. It's a toss. Remember, who always takes the pitch man, whether it be a toss or a read pitch? DBs do. So now he has to come here. He now has to cover all this ground to get up here. Outside backer does a pretty good job. He kind of bubbles out a little bit. Shakopee's slot back gets a lot of credit, though. He does a good job fighting off the block and kind of letting him go upfield and taking him underneath. And you'll see that opens up a nice hole. I don't know if is that Carson Turner right there. Maybe that is. He lost to me when he was a freshman. He was at Chaska, I think. We were at Jefferson, first game of the year. That might be Mr. Turner. I don't know. But if it is, actually, I think that's Carson right there. But hey, either way, he's doing a great job blocking. Slot back here is a great job. He seals that here. He sees that this guy came up. He's got a running lane right here. He's got blockers. He hits it. And then, probably one of the worst things that the corner for Hopkins decides right here. Remember, he has to contain the edge. Safety comes into fill. All the guys in the wash chase down. That's how you defend rocket toss. But watch the corner. What does he decide to do? Oh, he jumps inside. So now, who's left on that entire part of the field to defend the toss? Nobody. Slot back here gets outside of that, and then it's just a foot race with the safety. Which, oh, look at that. It's a foot race with the safety. Think about that. If, going back to here, if corner would have done his job right there, zoom back, I want to be behind that. If corner stays outside here, then we're getting the tackle at the 40-yard line. Instead, tackle is happening at, so he's out of bounds right there, the 28. Did they give him the 28 or the 27? Ref spots him. Gave him the 27. So all because one person dipped inside right there, that was an extra 13 yards for Shakopee. 13, I mean, that's more than a first down. All for just because we didn't obey the rules. And that, but again, that's why it's so hard to play like Shakopee. Ian and Centennial, very similar offenses. They just like more tight ends. But that's why it's so difficult. Because if you slip up on your rules even one time, there's a hole right there. Offense is going to exploit it. Now, next up, now they're in an unbalanced wing slot. So this is what we call this. So a wing, I see a lot of teams not know what a wing is in football, and they usually misname it. So a wing is when you have a tight end and usually like an H-back or a slot back right next to each other. That is a wing right there. So that's why we call that wing slot. Because wing, slot on the opposite side, and it's unbalanced because both eligible receivers on the same side are both in the line, and backside tackles eligible. So that's why it's unbalanced wing slot. A lot of these triple option teams like to go unbalanced because what they do is they draw a line down the center there and they see which side of the field has more defenders on. So as you can see, and honestly, they probably should have run like rocket toss or outside veer to the right, which I don't think they do. I might have mislabeled. And this might have been one of the plays I mislabeled. But if you look down the middle here, Hopkins has safety stacked over the middle, 5 and 5. Well, if you draw the line down here, Shakopee obviously has way more guys on this side than on this side. And if it's the same number of defenders, I'd like my odds over here. So again, if you're Hopkins, how do you fix that? You take your front 8 and you just scoot them over one gap that way when it's unbalanced. That way, instead of out here, he scoots over, scoot over, scoot over, 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 over. That way, when Shakopee does draw their line, sure, they have less guys over here, but now so do you, and they have more here. You also have more. That way, you're matching them, and they don't necessarily have an advantage one way or the other. So I think Shakopee was, yeah, they're running to the left here, which if I was Shako, I probably would have waited to see how they line up against my unbalanced before just straight up calling a play. Like, this would have been a good time to come up, ice them, first down, maybe get them to jump off sides. And then you can see how they're lined up. And as soon as you see that they're on your weak side here, not catering to the unbalanced side, you can check to rocket toss or check to outside veer to the top. And so I did mislabel this. I called this outside veer. In order to run outside veer, you have to have a tight end on that side. So outside veer can only go to the right. This play goes to the left. Even though he's reading the edge defender, it's still an inside veer. It's just, remember, going back to what I said about the block from the slot back, instead of doing an arc block or a bob, he's doing a bib block. So it's still inside veer. We're just having a bib tag on it. What play is this right here? That is a Coach Lance mistake, but hey, we all make mistakes. We're always learning. Inside veer LT. There you go. Yay, Shakopee. I think they still score on this play, don't they? So again, he does the dive. What is the outside defender doing? C-gap defender ran up field. So that means 100% of the time, dive man's getting the ball. Dive man gets the ball, and then he just outruns the safety. Was that? That's how Shakopee's offense rolls. And just like that, we're not even halfway through the first quarter, and we got 14 zip. I like that motion on the extra point. All right, ball back to Hopkins. That's not a play. Here we go. Kick return. They got it. They got it. There we go. Third time's a charm. Why is there like a fake kickoff in there? They did that twice. I'm gonna have to talk with Shakopee's film crew. Oof. Okay. Not a fan of how far forward everyone is on Hopkins. I'd probably say you want 5 up here and then maybe scoot him back a little bit more. And your entire team is running forward. So look at that. Look at the gap it creates right here, especially when the ball's caught deep. He catches the ball around the 5-yard line. He has 2 guys on his team. Well, actually, let's go when he catches it. So he catches it right here. Caught it on the 3-yard line right there. If you go all the way up to the 35, where Shakopee's guys are getting to, he only has 2 blockers between him and Shakopee at that point. And there's 35 yards of empty space. And then immediately, a lot of red jerseys caving in on him. And look, he decides to go that way. Look at all the pursuit angles from Shakopee. This is such a... You can tell that they practice their kickoff. Wow, is that nice filling. Then you get all the red jerseys to the ball, get it down. And now Hopkins has to go 87 yards to score. Hey, you always want to pin an opponent back deep. That's winning the field position battle right there. Okay, so center's right here. If they... You can tell he's looking in. How much you want to bet they're going to do a fake jet? And it's going to be inside zone right here. Again, going by our rules, we have tight end here. Draw a line down the middle. Running backs over there. How much you want to bet Hopkins is going to do inside zone going down to the tight end? Let's see if they do. Not getting the ball, right? He can't get the ball. The running backs... So this is why I was saying put the running back in pistol right here. Because then you can inside zone opposite... And then you can actually sell this fake. When the running back's on this side, you know he's not getting the ball. It's going to be a fake jet. I don't know why it turned black. Again, I got to talk with Shakopee's film crew. And it wasn't. It was inside zone. It was exactly what I said it would be. Dude, okay. Yeah. Like I said, I've pretty much talked this point to death. If you're going to run a sidecar spread offense, it makes it way too obvious what's going to happen. Like, running back is not in position to lead block for a jet sweep. So even if you do the jet motion and time it correctly, you know he's not getting the ball. The blockers aren't set up to block for him. So it's a useless fake. Like, oh boy. Yeah. Then he does a pretty good job cutting it back. You know, give the running back credit. Way to find a hole, hit the wash. And, you know, going back to the whole high gear, low gear thing we talked about. Notice that Shakopee's D-line, he's now in a shade. He's in a 3. He's out here in a 5. They're shifting over again. You have high gear defender, and then the defensive end on the backside. I think he's the one that messes up here, right here. He's got to be a low gear defender and play it a little bit slower. Same with the outside backer over there. See what they do. Yep, he's playing high gear again. If he would just slow down a little bit and understand that he's the low gear defender, because Shakopee's defensive coordinator, if he's calling this as an overcall, or if they told their linebackers, hey, always call over opposite of the running back, they're doing a fantastic job of that. What they're messing up, though, is that you got to coach the backside guy on the over against the sidecar offense. You are low gear. These 2 are high gear. They get to go attack and make that running back ever regret touching the football. You have to stay in the wash, whether it be because the running back cuts back on inside zone or if the quarterback keeps it. You have to stay there for that. And you can just see time and time again, defensive end, he shoots hard inside, running back gets outside of him, and then there's the seam to run through. All because he's trying to play high gear instead of low. One little adjustment from Shakopee, and that play is a TFL every time. But other than that, their game planning is very effective. Like I said, that's a very minor thing you can coach the kid up on. You just pull him off on the next series and say, hey, you're cutting in way too hard. If you're opposite of the running back, sit in the wash. Just squeeze down on the tackle's hip or guard's hip if you're shooting inside that gap, and just play it like that, and you'll shut them down. All right, so now it's second and medium. Now we have trips. So they're over on this hash. You have tight end here. Tight end running back on the same side. So even if they do a jet fake there, now he's got 0 lead blockers, so a jet's motion would be pointless here. Unless they're trying to set up a pass play. And see if they do run, it'd be a run there. But they've always run to their strength this game. So I don't think they're going to run away from it. I feel like this is going to be a pass play. I was wrong. They ran away from their strength. Good job mixing it up. Again, they're all reach blocking. It's zone left. And they get some good yards. So, hey, give Hopkins props. I mean, they're still running opposite of the running back. And you can tell Shakopee is still ready. See? Now, he's more in a 4 technique. So this is where they should have... Maybe it's because the strength is over here. Should have put him in a 3, him in the shade, and then him off the edge. And then they got nowhere to go. They still slant that way? No. So that's why it worked. Shakopee slanted to the strength when they should have lined up over opposite of the halfback. So maybe they don't know about being opposite of the halfback, or maybe they were expecting flood. Who knows? Either way, good job, Hopkins. Mixed it up a little bit, caught Shakopee lacking. So 3rd and 1, you expect it to be a run play. Well, I guess if I looked at the top, I could have seen it was a run play. You're still in 11 personnel. You have trips. You have no slot receiver. I mean, if you wanted to be smart, you could do inside zone that way and then have quarterback come out that way on a nude bootleg or a nude zone read. That'd actually be pretty smart. What do they do, though? So I don't like this jet motion. You can get the defense to shift, which you see he shifts. He's coming up. He's ready for it. But again, running back's on this side. Tight end is on this side. Even if you do a fake handoff and then you run counter back that way, you never want to run your run play into the same direction as the motion fake, because I guess the whole defense is already going that way with the motion. You're just running into where you're leading the defense. That's like saying, hey, you say I'm wearing a blindfold and I'm trying to cook, and I tell my friend, hey, don't let me stick my pan or my hand in the pan by accident. What does my friend do? They take the hand and they put it right in the pan. That's essentially what's going on right here. And see, look. All right. Shakopee outside backer. That is low gear play right here. You're doing a great job. Hopkins, like I said, the motion, there's nobody set to lead block for him, so nobody falls for it. And look, when you do a fake that way, what did I say the defense was going to do? See, look at all the Shakopee jerseys. They're all going this way. And where are you running the ball? Right into them. What you should have done is, if you had the running back here, you could have done a fake jet. Running back's in position to block, and you come back that way. Then you can get the tight end on that guy, and that'll be a first down. If you are going to do fakes, jet fake always has to make sense with your alignment. Didn't there. I think the kid still managed to get a first down. Looks like it's right on there. There we go. But it was a lot more difficult than it needed to be. We're relying on this kid to try and run around and be an absolute athlete and a stud, instead of just making it easier on him just by changing how we're aligned a little bit. All right, next play. So now 1st and 10. Hopkins got a first down. What have they done on first down every time? They've run the ball. Maybe they'll mix it up, though. So again, we're in trips. I should say tray open. You have tight end with twins, lone receiver on the backside. Running back in the wire on the same side. So if it is a run play, it has to be run that way. Oh, well, yeah, look up there. It's a pass play. All right. Noted. Shakopee looks like they're bringing a blitz. Also, what did Shakopee do? Personnel change. That last play, they were back into their base defense, I think, right? Back to a 3-4. Yes, they are. Look at inside backer coming back into the fray. 3rd and short, and kind of weird they didn't change. They stuck with their base defense here. See how there's only 2 safeties? You have another inside backer. Weird that they didn't switch their nickel package again. Also kind of weird that they shifted over this way. They're calling over to the strength as opposed to calling over opposite of the running back. I definitely would have liked to see them call over opposite of the running back a little bit. Yeah, they're in their base defense. Backing off. Pass play. Incomplete. Oh, they're clapping. They must have thrown a flag. 15 yards. Yeah, because the ball, that's not 15 yards. 15 yards is up here. So I'm assuming there was a penalty on that. Dang. Okay, so 10 personnel. They ran the first time, did not go so well for them. Shakopee is still in. So here, you've caught Shakopee in a mismatch, right? Shakopee is currently in their base defense 3-4. You have outside backers that help in the flat, but you only have 4 DBs for 4 receivers. You want to be excuse me. If I'm the offense, I look at that mismatch, I want to be passing. If you get a receiver doing an out route, well, safety can't come up and play that. Outside backer is never going to get there. Then say you do like a stick. Stick would work well there. A rub would work well there to keep those guys inside, and then that's going to come wide open on the end. Especially against teams that play cover 4. And they do a swing pass. I don't know if I'm a fan of the way they run it, so running back starts there. He catches the ball here. I mean, he lost 3 yards on top of the fact he's already that far from the line of scrimmage. Whereas if he caught the ball and just ran laterally, he'd only have to go that far. So he gave himself 3 extra yards to try and make up. You got some decent blocking up here. You got him in a mismatch. So I actually do like the way this is set up. If he was here instead of back here, I think it would have made it a little bit easier for them. That's just a minor thing you can clean up in practice. You got a block in the back right there. I don't know if that's called. I don't think so, but... Oh, and then classic receiver blocking makes big plays. Receiver stops blocking, and he turns around and looks at the ball carrier, and then what happens? His man... Oh, look at this tackle. I'd like to see the head up a little bit more. You want to have your eyes up when you're tackling to keep your head safe, but he has the shoulder in the gut. He's tackling low. That's just a wonderful takedown. And he celebrates. Hey, great tackle, Shako. And you fought off the block. That's absolutely fantastic DB play. There must have been a penalty because Hopkins got moved up again. So that's 30 yards worth of penalties Shakopee's given up. I think Hopkins has more yards off penalties than they do yards off offense. Also, I apologize if it looks like blurry right here. That is not the stream. That is just Shakopee. Like if I go over to another tab here, that's just the film. You can see that part of the screen looks totally fine. 100% just because of the film. You know, Lakeville Northfield does that too. They've got like a weird like fuzziness right there. And it's only on this yard line. Maybe it's just the windows they use. Okay, so we know tight end, I believe, is up here. You have pro twins because you have pro this side, twins here. Running back this side. If it is a run play, it's inside zone going that way. No, not. So, what have we learned? Running back is on this side, not over here. So he is not in position to lead block. So even if you fake the jet, no one's going to fall for it. And 2, the jet is going the same direction. I'm assuming it's got to be inside zone. I haven't seen them do any other run plays. I don't know if they have other run plays. But if you're doing inside or outside zone the same way, again, Shakopee, sure, they're back in their nickel package against your 11 personnel. I like the choice to run. You got to be running back this way. You cannot run into the direction where you're sending their defense with the motion. And look, once he goes in motion, he signals, scoot, scoot. So again, now the safeties are going that way. The entire defense is starting to go that way. And what do? We hand off and we run right into that defense. And then, see, this is also great defensive play. So see what I was talking about? So the cornerback does not a very good job here. He gets sucked inside. If he stays on the edge right here, this would be a huge TFL. If he does his job and just stays on the outside shoulder there, maintains the edge, safety can fill, and then where does he go? If he bounces outside, he runs into the corner. So he has to cut back inside. Shakopee's intense front 6 are coming after him. There's nowhere for him to go. But again, I do not like that play design. You cannot run the same direction you do your fake. If you're doing, and again, the running back's alignment gives away that he's not getting the ball anyway. So you know it's going to be inside zone that way. What you have to do is you got to move running back over to this side, and then you can either run inside zone back this way against the grain, because then you're meeting Shakopee head on, running, and then you can actually do a fake jet, and then hand off that way, lead block there, boom. That'd be a lot better. Or I think we talked about counter earlier. You want to run counter? Simple. Down, 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 pull, kick out, close block, come out, go up. If he comes up, he attacks there. Safety gets to go with the motion. So if safety goes with motion, you go up and hit the safety. He gets to kick out the backer. You get a block there. These 2 guys are already going over there. Boom. There's your play. And you know what? Do what Minnetonka does. If you have an athletic quarterback, we'll keep those lines drawn. There. If they're going that way, if you have an athletic quarterback, have the running back do a fake sell. Have him block out there, and then have a quarterback do a counter step out that way. You can even have him ride the motion. Have him ride the motion out here, And then boom, Caleb Francois, go back, follow your guard, follow your tight end. These safeties are out of position. These guys are accounted for. You're going to have a double team here that can work up to backer. There's a lot that Hopkins could do just by a few slight adjustments of how they align that I think would definitely help their offense out a little bit. Change how you're aligned there, and I think you'll do a better job selling your fakes. You get your quarterback involved in the run game, which you should be doing. If you run a spread offense and you don't run your quarterback, you might want to think about switching to a pro style or I formation based offense, because there's no point in doing a spread if you can't run the ball with your quarterback. Because again, they're not worried about the quarterback running the ball. There's nobody like staying home on this side because they don't care. They know the only threat to stay or run this side is a quarterback. And he hasn't run the ball once. And I don't think on film Hopkins ever runs him. So they all attack the running back. And look, do we have inside zone? Jeez, I scribbling the entire planet. Yeah, it was inside zone. That's right, because I talked about how the corner needed to keep the edge. It could have been a bigger tackle for loss if they stayed there, but that's still a great job by Shakopee swarming to the ball. So props in the world to Shako. Good defense. Okay, so now second and mid. Well, second and you're behind the sticks. This is so if I'm like a Rochester Mayo or if I'm like a Wyzetta, this is where I'm going to call tunnel screen or running back screen. Apple Valley, I know you used to do this. This is prime bubble, tunnel, and running back screen territory. Same thing for Anoka. They like running back screens right here and tunnel screens behind the sticks. And you know it's going to be a pass because they came back in 10 personnel. They ran one time in 10, got smoked, and haven't gone back to it. So let's, oh yeah, duh, it says pass up there. Oh, and there you go. You're behind the sticks, and what do they call? They call tunnel. And you can see up here, I didn't have the play labeled. I just said that's likely what teams run there. So, hey, there we go. Yeah, not a fan of the tight end block. There's that tackle. So if you're running tunnel this way, you need to get off and get out there. You need to go attack, and you need to go attack. Ball's out right now. Yeah, I don't like that this tackle's hung up. You need to be out there blocking. Another thing I don't like with tunnel screens is you have to look at how the defense is aligned pre-snap. They wanted to call tunnel. You call tunnel if you have more guys out here and not a lot of guys in here. And then vice versa. If you have a lot of guys out here, not a lot in there, that's when you call a tunnel. When it's the other way around, say I have a lot of guys in the box and not many out here, that's when you call bubble. Bubble, he goes out and gets the pass, he blocks. Tunnel and bubble are the same thing, they just switched around the roles. He gets a bubble pass, whiteout blocks. For tunnel, he blocks inside, he does a fake, and comes in like that. That's the only difference between tunnel and bubble. And again, when I'm looking from up in the box, I see there's 5 guys here, 3 out here, well, 3 smaller than 5. Bubble is better, because if I get a piece of this guy, then it's just a foot race between my slot receiver and the safety trying to get out there, and I like my odds with the slot receiver. But instead, they go tunnel, the O-line doesn't get a good release, and, I mean, you didn't block the 2 guys you need to block on the tunnel screen. The wide receiver does a good job getting his man, but the O-line just did not get out to their spots, and like I said, there's too many guys on the inside. You only have to account for 3 guys. And keep in mind, look at where the outside linebacker is here. He does a good job playing the bubble going out. He plays out, so you only have 2 out there. His first read, he's coming in. So when he goes inside like that, then he realizes it's a pass. What is the first thing he does? He turns out here. You are leading your receiver into the man that's going to tackle him. Whereas if we run just a traditional bubble, we get way more yards. And if you remember that first run play that they did when they ran inside zone, obviously they gave up yards or whatever, they did a bubble pattern. Well, if you're going to do the bubble pattern, you have to throw the bubble. If you do the bubble pattern and you don't throw the bubble, teams aren't going to respect it. And they don't need to because you're not going to do it. So another thing, again, it's like not running the quarterback. It's just another facet of their offense that you don't need to worry about. Oh, too many lines. And yeah, like I said, guys don't get out there. And look, outside backer, you lead your receiver right into him with a tunnel. Whereas if there's a bubble, safety's trying to make the play out here. Inside backer from there is never going to get out there to make that play. That gives your stud wideout. I think that's like a, isn't that kid like a 4-star, 3 or 4-star basketball player? You get him in space out here, one-on-one with the safety. And I don't think that's Coach Betten's son, is it? No, I think Coach Betten's son is up there. So it's not even the coach's son. You have him on another safety. You have a mismatch. I'd take that all day. So yeah, I definitely would have called bubble instead of tunnel there. So this is what Wyzetta does a lot, and I think Hopkins might want to adopt this for their offensive play calling, because I'm assuming they're going no huddle. It's hard to tell on the huddle. You usually have to go watch a live stream to see whether they're no huddle or whatever they do to call plays. But what they should do is kind of like what Hopkins Farmington does. They come up, they do a clap, and try and fake you out, and then they look over, and then they get the play from the coaches. I highly think Hopkins would benefit from that, because then you can see what they're lined up in. So it could have prevented this whole play. So if they come up, say they see it right here, they get set, ready, and they do a fake clap, and they see, okay, there's more guys in the box than there are out here. Instead of calling tunnel, let's call bubble. Then bubble, boom, they have the right play. Or even if you wanted to run a post wheel, I don't know if they had a blitz on. You hit the classic, we called that twist at Jefferson. You hit the post wheel. Centennial loves that too. A lot of teams like post wheel. That's also there because you get a crossing pattern. Yeah, that bubble, any of that would have worked. Anything but the tunnel honestly works on that play. Yeah, so like I said, nice little change they could do. Adjust running back alignments, go out of pistol, don't do run plays to the same side that you're jet motioning to, and do more ice calls before you run plays. And then that gives the OC time to say, oh, they're lined up like this, here's how we're going to beat it, call this. Those three things I think will just highly elevate Hopkins' offense. And obviously throw in GH counter. Or not, it doesn't have to be GH counter, since you have a tight end, just regular counter. Add that in, and then running the quarterback is like a question mark. If you can get counter going, you don't need to run the quarterback as much, especially if you go into a pistol. But if you're not going to go pistol and you're not going to run counter, you got to get the quarterback running. So just some things to consider. I definitely would implement those. All right, so Shakopee's like not respecting the pass on this side. See, once again, he's actually pointed inside. He's shifted over. He's over. And all their linebackers are all shifted this way. I would not be surprised if we saw blitz and then blitz there, and then he kind of hangs in the wash. They're back in 11 personnel. If it is a run play, again, tight ends up here, running backs down here. We've seen this like 100 times. There's no way it's inside zone to the left again. It can't be. Oh, it's a pass play. Okay, they did something different. Shakopee did blitz like I said they would, though. So, all right. And nobody got the blitzer. The tight end go out on a pass. So tight end went on a pass pattern, so he's coming free. So again, if you put running back in pistol here instead of sidecar, then he can come up and look at the middle on the quarterback's backside. Quarterback is right-handed, so he can take the backside, and then he'd see right away, okay, replace the tight end, outside backer's coming, I'll pick him up. Because he's not blocking anybody. These guys are all taken care of. Meanwhile, the guy he should be blocking is coming off clean. Did he get the sack? Yes, I don't know if that was a sack. He might have gained a yard. It's at the line of scrimmage. We'll call it a sack. Hey, great hustle by Shakopee's outside backer to come all the way across the formation to get that tackle. That was fantastic. And it was third down. You know what? Okay, this is me being an idiot. It's 3rd and 8. Obvious passing situation. I did not look at the down and distance. Coach Lance's fault. Me dumb. And just like that, are we still in the first? Dude, oh my. So, we've been talking this game to death. We are only in the first quarter, man. I'm only 30 plays in and we've had this much to say. That's wild. All right, so Shakopee got a good punt return. You got to cover punts. Otherwise, I mean, if you give Shakopee only, 43 yards to go to score, they're going to score. Shakopee has a really good offense. So unbalanced wing slot, back to their option stuff. If you look, you have a tight end here. So I think I might have mislabeled this. If it's outside veer, it's got to go that way to the tight end. If it's inside veer, it's got to go that way to the unbalanced side. And again, if I'm Shako, draw that line down the middle. Hopkins is still 5 and 5 on each side. got numbers on your strong side. So outside veer that way, or even rocket toss that way would be my play call. Either one of those. I think those would both be great choices here. And if Hopkins is going to maintain this line defense that they're doing, which again, that's not a bad idea as long as they stick to their rules. Personally, all right, how I would do it. So erase a bunch of these lines. Well, actually, we'll keep the lines because I want what their defense is doing. We'll change up some of this. I would do what I call an up call. A lot of teams like to do up calls when they're in their 3-4. All you're doing is scooting these guys up. There you go. Looks familiar, huh? And the rules still stay the same. 5 in the middle, attack the fullback. What this does is you can't get a double team at the point of attack here now, because I have a guy right there that you have to count for. And if he crashes down on him, he can take the dive. You're not getting as much of a push. And now you can't get a double team on the nose because you have to account for a guy right in front of you. And if you abandon him, there's a good chance he gets off the guard's butt and is able to blow this up before the tackle can step off to get to him. This is a great way to mess with them because you're basically forcing the entire O-line here to win a one-on-one matchup across the board. And they're not going to win every single one-on-one matchup. So to the point of this, though, you have to know whether the team, and this is traditional flexbone teams, normally a flexbone offensive line has a really big center, decently big guards, and small tackles. If you've ever seen Egan play, they follow that pattern. I'd have to go watch Centennial. I don't know if Centennial, I'm pretty sure, follows that. Tackles are smaller, guard bigger, center biggest. Traditional offenses, you have a decent center, small guards, big tackles. So it's important to know, are they following more traditional rules or are they following flexbone O-line rules like Egan does? Well, guess what? Shakopee follows traditional rules even though they run a flexbone. Their guards are not as big as their tackles, so their tackles are the bigger guys. Because I was going to say, if you're defending Egan, what I would do is I'd call jam. You jam your 3 defensive linemen inside because these are their biggest 3 O-linemen. They're now matched up on my biggest guy, and I get my smaller linebackers matched up on your smaller tackles. So you see, we're calling jam up. We have the up call, we're jamming the inside, and they still have the dive. It still forces these O-linemen to win one-on-one matchups, but now Will Backer becomes the C-gap defender. He becomes the read key, so that messes with the quarterback. They're at the line of scrimmage, so he has a lot less time to be able to make his read decision. Like I said, they have to win one-on-one matchups. You're not getting a double team at the point of attack. And because I called jam, these are bigger guys. I've got bigger bodies on bigger guys. Now, like I said, can't do that to Shakopee because if I did this on Shakopee, well, I've got their biggest lineman. I've got, D1 Trey Boyd right here matched up on an inside linebacker. Shako's going to win that every time. You don't call the jam call on that. You just call an up call. And this is why I don't like the safety cheated down. So suppose we cheat the safety down and he's on there in the line, whatever, like what Hopkins is doing. Now the free safety, he has to cover the entire pitch regardless of which way it goes. It's a lot of running for one kid. You don't want to do that. So I prefer to do this. Stick to your rules. These 5, get that left tackle back there. These 5 all take the dive. It doesn't matter. If you come through clean, if it's midline here, if it's inside here or outside veer there, you 5 always attack the dive. Whether it's outside veer, toss, whatever, you take quarterback, you always take quarterback. And then these 2, you can come up, and like I said, stay outside, stay outside. Now he has to cut it back in. Whole defense is chasing. They have nowhere to go. Personally, that's just how I would defend against it. I know that's not how South does it or how a lot of teams do it, but that is definitely what I would do to defend Shako. And like I said, if I was playing against Egan or Centennial, and instead of calling a regular up call, you call jam and then up. If you don't want to go up, I wouldn't recommend doing just a regular jam call like that with 0s and 2s, because then you're giving them a nice big triangle here to work with. They're going to call outside veer into that or midline every single time. You're going to get a block down here. He becomes the key because he's filling, and he's going to take the dive, and you have quarterback midline right through there. So yeah, if you're going to call jam against an Egan, got to give him an up call too. Otherwise, if you're going to play Shakopee, no jam call because the tackles are bigger than the guards. And just give them an up call. And there you go. Force them to win each one of those battles one-on-one. They're not going to win all of them. You're going to force the quarterback to make the decision faster. And if he pitches the ball earlier, if they get the pitch back here instead of out here, well, guess what? Then they're not going to gain as many yards. That gives our DBs more time to come up and attack the pitch man. Defense has more time to pursue because he's further back. It takes him longer to get back to the line of scrimmage. Just a much better way to defend it. And if you are going to do it with 8, then you just got to stick with those rules. Inside 6, take the dive. Outside 2, only take the quarterback. And your free safety has to come in and fill on the pitch. It's going to be miserable for your free safety. Hopefully this kid back here is not playing both ways, because if he is in that scheme, he's going to get a lot of cardio in today. Ooh. Let's see. Okay, so I labeled this play wrong. Why? I called outside veer. You have to have a tight end or an outside veer. There's no tight end on this side. That is not outside veer. This is inside veer. Veer left. There you go. Perfect. And you'll see, comes off unblocked. What does he do? He charges forward. So who gets the ball? The dive man. And look, ooh, Shakopee left tackle. Watch the left tackle's technique here. This is veer blocking 101. He doesn't touch this guy here. He crashes down hard and he's walling off. Oh, look at that. See, they built the wall. Here comes the veer block. Slot back just has to kick that guy up. He doesn't really need to lead. Personally, if I'm running inside veer, I would have called arc there, get him out. I guess you can't really do that because there's nobody out there. But again, if I were Shakopee, I probably wouldn't have called inside veer to the backside because, going back to the play at the beginning, we've got numbers on the unbalanced side. Numbers are up here, not down here, so I would have called something to that side. But from Shakopee's perspective, they're probably like, well, it's Hopkins. It doesn't matter which side we call it to. But yeah, dive gets the ball, and now safety is trying to play the pitch man, and you see him go, oh, pitch man's not getting the ball. I have to help out, or else they're getting a touchdown. Great shoestring tackle by the Hopkins safety. And I'm not giving any shade to Hopkins safety. I think that is, there's some things you can do coaching-wise to make his life a lot easier. Right now, that poor kid is being forced to do so much and run all over the field. And he's doing it. Give him credit. He's putting in the effort and he's hustling. Oh, this is Shakopee's pass. I can't talk. Pass play. Okay, so as you've noticed, Shakopee's passed the ball 0 times. They're a run-heavy team. They're still unbalanced, so you draw the line. Hopkins is still not adjusted. They're still 5-5 against unbalanced. Again, how do we fix that? Slide over one gap or one man that way, and then you got them. Now you're balanced, and it forces them to change what they're doing. And this is why, so going back, remember how I said I want 2 high safeties? When you have a team that runs 30 personnel or even 31, you have to still respect the pass game, because this is what they do. Centennial loves to do this. If you give Centennial a cover 3 look or 8 men in the box, they will look to pass the ball on you, even though they're like the most run-heavy team in 6A. As soon as they see you're giving me a single high safety, they're going to turn on waggle. They're going to turn on their post wheel that they love, which we Lakeville South folks know all about the post wheel. I think it was Josh Lee that caught that post in the state semifinal to beat us in 2023. I want to say they ran post wheel. But yeah, and why? Because we gave them 8 men in the box, single high safety. Great call. Coach Littlefield? Yeah, Littlefield. Gold star. But yeah, so you're giving up the pass, and since the free safety's over the middle, look at all that green right there. That is a lot of grass to utilize. Oh, and where does he catch it? Right in the middle of all that green. Then he just makes one move to make the safety miss. I mean, if he wanted to, because it's cover 3, he could have kept going up the seam here, but if you want to cross the safety, if you're an athletic move, either of the seams are good. There he is. Great call, Shako. Run, 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 run. Get them to cheat up. Once they're cheated up and committed, hit them with the pass. That was very methodical play calling by Shako. Even though, like I said, I probably would have changed which side I called plays to as soon as I saw I'm unbalanced and they're not respecting my unbalanced side. Instead of inside veer left twice. I mean, sure, it's Hopkins, you got touchdowns, but if you were playing like Minnetonka or Eden Prairie, I probably would have called that to the other side and run outside veer. Or even like a Wyzetta. If you get Wyzetta out there and they're not respecting you because they play out wide, hit them with that outside veer, that tight end side. But like I said, Because it's Hopkins, you can get away with it. Other than that, veer, veer, toss, toss, veer, toss, veer, veer, slant pass, touchdown, boom. That's textbook Shakopee. Fantastic play calling. All right, hey, once again, they're doing a fantastic job on special teams. Look at this. If I'm Hopkins, I gotta get more guys back further. Because right now, if you scoot this back, how many do they have up here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what we would probably do, him up, him back here. Then if you have one kid in particular you want to get the ball, you can move him there and make him go there. Be a little bit nicer for them. Just because when you have this much dead space back here and you know their kicker can get that far, you're just asking for them to pin you back deep. Like right there, that's at the 9-yard line. And see, because everybody's up here, there's just no blockers, and most of the Shakopee guys just run right by the blockers. So if you get more blockers a little bit further back, dare them to kick an onside against you. I guarantee Hopkins can get that onside kick. They absolutely will get it. So they still have to kick it deep. Now you have more blockers on your side. Okay. So 10 personnel, trips. It's going to be run or pass. I mean, if it is run, it's going to be inside zone right there. But it says run, so okay. I'm assuming it's a run play. Will it be inside zone to the bottom of the screen? Let's see. Okay. All right. Well, I think it's outside. I can't tell if it's inside or outside zone based on how he's like hook blocking. I want to say it's outside zone. I think Shakopee just got a face mask right there. Yeah. I saw both of them reaching for their flags, and I'm like, I think they might have called that, so there they go. But again, your running back's alignment gave the play away. You love running the ball on first down. And this is why I think it would, going back to the whole point of come up, ice them, first down, see what they're lined up in. Look at where their outside backer is. He's not out here covering. He's coming to attack, and you're calling inside zone right into them. He's shifted over. He's probably coming off the backside playing low gear, so you know you're going to have some sauce. Yeah, this should have been a pass play. And look at all this space here. And you have a mismatch. Look, the safety is over here. He's not even involved. You have 3-on-2 going back to bubble. Who is on? You only have one defender on that entire third of the field. You have 2 blockers. You get block, then bubble here. Oh, ooh, fantastic. And then if you line up pistol here so that they don't know which side you're going to go to, amazing. Then he can do a run fit right, or a blitz fit right there on the backside. Get your bubble out here, block, boom. That's why I come up, ice them, look over. What does Coach Chauncey wants? Guy up in the box says, hey, Coach C, hit him with the bubble right here. They're giving us that, all right? Bubble right. He makes a call at the line saying, hey, it's a pass play. Do a hand signal or something that lets the receivers know. Like even something like that. Just circle. Call a bubble. And they know, oh, it's going to be bubble, and they know how to run bubble. And they do that, and then boom. And now look at this. If they did that, who else is coming out here? Nobody. And see how hard the inside backer blitzed? As soon as you see that, they should have done, even if you want to do like a fake inside zone and then hit the bubble, which actually would make sense. If you want these bubbles and the run game to open up, they have to complement each other. You have to do a fake bubble throw after you do the handoff, and you have to do a fake handoff before you do the bubble throw. Do those two things in concert with him out of pistol so they don't know which way he's going. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I would definitely switch that up if I was Hopkins. So 1st and 10. That's right. There was the penalty on the face mask, so they get a scoot up, personal foul, and they might have only been a 5-yard penalty. Where were they at before? The 21. They're at the oh. See, this says 2nd and 10. That says for okay. Maybe they picked the flag up. I don't know. Or maybe it was a penalty against Hopkins. Maybe they called holding and Shako declined it. Who knows? Okay, so still 10 personnel, 2nd and long. Assuming it's a, well, it says pass, but yeah, it's safe to assume it'd be a pass play. Notice the running back is out wider on the pass play. Interesting little tendency there. And he's stepping up to the, I find it interesting they always have him stepping up to the quarterback's throwing side instead of to his back side. Interesting that they chose to slide protect that way. Normally you slide protect to the quarterback's blind side. Ooh, okay. I mentioned sticks earlier at Jefferson. You're out, then you're fade. Out, and then fade. This absolutely kills cover 2 and cover 4. So you're getting that switch motion. And look at that. Taco actually does a good job defending it, but you're leaving a safety to try and come over. Or that's not even the safety. Those are the corners on each side. You're leaving your corner one-on-one against a receiver. I think that kid's a basketball player. You can tell by the reaction. They're hyped. He made the catch. Oh, yes, sir. Get the ball to your playmakers. So, I want to say when I was at Jefferson in 2022, obviously we had Daniel Freitag at wide receiver. Fantastic athlete. But this is some of the problem we ran into. We put him out here, but then it's like, well, how do you get him the ball? We're not getting the pass off fast enough. Our run game isn't being as respected. And so finally we're just like, oh, well, Waconia put Max McAnally in the Wildcat and just ran with him. Why don't we do the same thing? And sure enough, we win the next 2 games doing that. And we actually played Chanhassen pretty darn close in game 8. Keep in mind, that was Chanhassen with like Maxwell Woods, Sam Macy, like that whole roster that went on to win state the next year. So very good Chanhassen team. But yeah, just minor little tweaks like that. The goal of every offense is get the ball to your best athlete behind your best blocker. Doesn't matter if you're a pistol spread, you're a flex bone, you're a power eye. Like any team in 6A, they all try and do that on offense. You get the ball to your best player behind your best blockers. If you, as a defensive coach, just follow that, you'll always know what they're going to do. Always. But yeah, great job. They were able to hit a fade. I mean, if I'm Hopkins, I'm throwing quick fades like that all the time. If it's just a 50-50 ball with like a 4-star basketball player versus a Shakopee cornerback, you best believe I'm taking that 4-star point guard every time. Maybe he's a forward, whatever he plays. Okay, so first down, we're back in 11 personnel. Where's the center? Center's up here. Okay, I swear, if they do jet this way, because they're set up tight ends over here, again, running backs here, I've talked this to death. If it's inside zone here with the jet motion going that way as a fake, I might cry. Don't do it. Don't come in motion. Please do something different. Don't you come in motion. Don't do it. Don't. No! Oh, no! No! Oh! Oh! It happened. Not gonna cry. But oh boy, did it happen. Dude. And again, you're sending him into where the defense is going. So, to review, you always run opposite of the motion. If the motion goes this way, run goes that way. You can't do it the same way because look at the Shakopee interior. They're going this way with the fake. They know that it's going to be a run this way because that's where your sidecar back is set up to. This is the high gear side. You know it's going to be an inside or outside zone that way. Outside zone would make even less sense because a jet sweep is an outside play. You're going to stack 2 outside plays the same direction on each other? No. And simply move him back here, have him do a counter step that way, and then he can do inside zone back that way. Or if you want to do a full-on counter, down, 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 kick out, fire, up, and just do full-on Minnetonka. And like I said, if you want the running back over on this side to really sell it, have the running back go out there and do a fake. You can have him come up all the way around and get a safety if you wanted. And then quarterback takes it. There's Caleb Francois. And you run quarterback GH counter. You get a block out there. There's so many better ways to run this run scheme. And what irks me is I think this is the play we've seen the most often on film right now from Hopkins. So that tells me that's the bread and butter. I would not want that as my bread and butter. And if it is going to be, minor tweaks. Like I said, move him to that side or put him back there in pistol. That way you can really sell the jet fake, and whichever way the jet fake goes, run goes opposite. Gotta do that. Have to do that. And when you have a jet fake like that, you don't have a slot receiver because he's taking a handoff, so there's no bubble fake. If you don't have the bubble fake like you do out of 10 personnel, you have to stick to this rule. Have to. That way you keep both sides of the defense honest instead of, oh, everything goes this way, Shako defense goes here, play stopped. By the way, still the first quarter. Oh boy. And of course, it's a TFL because, like I said, the whole defense is going that way. And it's not just because Shakopee's super talented and Hopkins doesn't have as many kids. They're not as good of a team. Like little tweaks right there can overcome that. Like going back to that Waconia game that we played when I was at Jefferson, or even the Chaska game. Like Chaska was probably a better team than we were. Honestly, they should have won that game. Obviously, everything happened with Ethan. That was probably the worst thing that ever happened in my life. But game wise, Chaska was the better team. We came in with a better game plan and we caught them off guard. We knew everything they were going to do offensively because they had a ton of tendencies. When they get desperate on fourth down, they go into their diamond back and they run QB sweep or a toss. And we stuck to those rules, and every time they tried to run it on fourth down, we were there and ready for it because we knew what they like to do. And we gave them a few fits on defense. We called a lot of crossing routes and patterns, and it just messed with their cover 4. And then anytime, and I learned this when you go 3-by-1 against Chaska, when it's 2-by-2, they're playing quarters cover 4. When it's 3-by-1, they cheat a safety down, and then they play cover 3 with that backside safety and the 2 corners that then back off. And we knew that. I think they call it Thunder and Lightning were their calls back then. I don't know if they still do that. I haven't played Chaska, like I said, since 2022 when Mr. Turner over here was a freshman. Who knows if they still use those calls, but yeah. Thunder, Lightning, cover 2, cover 3. Is this the correct play? That's S. Here's the actual play. So it's second, they're behind the sticks, obvious passing down, you're in 10 personnel, and yeah, it says pass up there. So where's the green the defense is giving you? Again, defense is in nickel package, so you don't have the seams, and I'm loving Shakopee's defense. When you play the 3 high safeties like this with the corners, I mean, you could do cover 3, you could do cover 4, you could do a cover 1. There is so much you could do. You can even run cover 2. You can drop him there, flat, have him play an inside hook, and then that frees up one of them to blitz. You want to do cover 4, have him step up, quarters, boom, right there. You want to do cover 3, you could have him. I mean, they're running like college level defense right here, and they can mix that up as much as they wanted to. Like, all the credit in the world to Shakopee's defense. They really have shown out this game. And not just because they're more talented or, whatever garbage you want to say. That genuinely their scheme has been pretty sound. If they did want to get a little bit greedier, I would say just over, call over opposite of the running back. And see, running back, or outside linebacker, he knows he's high gear. He's opposite of the running back. He comes back. Okay, and then they're blitzing backside here. Oh, hey, that's great as a defender. If they're not going to block you, go hit that quarterback. Make him afraid to be in that game. And then, that is a safety coming up to make that play. I have absolutely no idea what this slot receiver does there. He shuffles the inside and hits the tackle. If this is meant to be a swing pass, block, and then don't go get him. He's not going to make the play. You're pitching it out here. He can't scoop out there fast enough to go get him. Coach Betten's son right there. I think that's Coach Betten's son. Oh, okay, that's got to be Coach Betten's son. Look at how he reads the swing pass right away, and look at his feet. Look, fast off the ball. He almost picks off a swing pass from 10 yards deep. Oh. By the way, we're finally in the second quarter. Yeah, that's awesome. Young Mr. Betten. Fantastic read. You get gold star. Okay, notice that he's not out as far enough as he should be. I always had to nag receivers at Jefferson when I was a receivers coach. You got to be equidistant between the tackle and the wideout. If you're not, because remember, you want to if you're running a spread offense, you want to spread out the defense. If you're lined up inside, well, guess what? Now he is too, and he's involved in the run game. You get your butt out here. Well, is he going to go out there with you and not be involved in the run game? Or is he going to be in there, be involved in the run game? Now you have numbers out there to run a bubble. Which, by the way, I haven't seen a single bubble. That halfback screen wasn't the best blocked either. So, yeah, we got to work on that a little bit. Just a little more on the fundamental rules there. So this could be a jet sweep because running back is on the correct side to lead block. And I know so you want to talk about Chaska? Block. They would do block down, so you get a double. He goes around. Or no, how do they do it? I'm trying to think. Because he pulls around and he helps there. They get a double down. He can go up to backer. You get a block there. So it's more like a trap. And then he just kind of holds off there. Or he could go up to the next backer. But that's just QB power, a power read essentially. And Rodgers really likes this play too. So what the quarterback does is jet guy is coming in motion. Quarterback steps and side shuffles with him for 2 steps and is reading the inside backers here. If these 2 inside backers go that way with the jet, then